the only witness to the kidnap and rape of the first innocent girl. Excerpts from the text. The question raging in the city of Al-Ghadarif after the kidnapping and rape of the first innocent girl is what people should believe in the actual details of the heinous crime. In her statement, the innocent girl mentioned that she was kidnapped by 5 bad guys and raped by 6 criminals. However, Inspector Hussein claimed that the girl was kidnapped by 4 men and raped by 5. 4 of these villains have been captured by him and his brave men, but their brutal leader has yet to be captured. The names of these 4 appeared in the local newspapers as Maumoun Yassin, Omar Al-Farouk, Mansour Taha, and Nasser al-Din Hassan. However, the innocent girl insisted that she was kidnapped by 5 bad men and raped by 6 criminals. She had given the names of the 4 aforementioned criminals and the leader of their gang, Awash al-Ajabo, and added to them the name of the magician. Inspector Hussein said that the magician was just a figment of the imagination of the girl's troubled mind. How can she imagine a name and a person? This is the public argument against Inspector Hussein. The journalists went so far as to ask Inspector Hussein to grant them permission to interview the 4 arrested criminals. The police inspector vehemently refused their request. He then opened the door to the hotly debated question of whom the public should believe. The kidnapped girl made a quick recovery in the hospital. On the 7th day after her rescue, the doctor allowed the police authority to take her statement and the journalists to interview her. Her sad story is on everyone's lips, and the public demanded that these villains be executed as soon as possible. Their brutal leader must be caught and sentenced to death as well. Moreover, they urged the police department to seriously inquire about the mysterious magician. Therefore, the journalists, after interviewing the innocent girl, pressed Inspector Hussein hard to allow them to interview the criminals. But Inspector Hussein again refused their request. The journalists gather in front of his office every day. In the midst of this urgency and public demands, Inspector Hussein did not come to his office since 2 days ago. Reporters were told that he had gone to the capital city to do an urgent mission. They tried to find out the nature of this urgent mission, but they couldn't figure it out. However, some of them guessed that he might have gone in search of the gang leader. When the inspector returned to his office, he found a long line of journalists waiting to meet him. A few people came to make new complaints to the famous police inspector. Among them are Farida, Sami, Salah, Intisar, and Walid Hamza. In fact, Walid is the first to get there, and then he is at the head of the waiting list. The other 4 friends arrived late and therefore stood at the end of the long line. As the friends waited for their turn, Salah suddenly turned their attention to Walid Hamza. They were surprised to see him there. They waved their hands to him, and he smiled at them. Salah is about to go and talk to him, but he stops when he sees that he has been called in. Here's a concise summary of the visit of the good citizen to Inspector Hussein's office based on the text. Summary of the visit. The good citizen is identified as Walid Hamza, who previously tipped off the police about a heinous crime involving kidnapping and rape. When called into Inspector Hussein's office, Walid is asked to confirm his identity and prove he is the same person who reported the crime. The inspector, appearing tense and skeptical, demands evidence of Walid's claim. Walid insists on his honesty, but struggles to provide tangible proof. Earlier, Walid had informed the authorities about the gang responsible for the crime and revealed corruption within the police, including a large bribe paid to Inspector Hussein by a wealthy figure, Mr. Osman Al-Taib. His role was pivotal in directing the police to the crime scene and exposing systemic corruption, which later influenced arrests and trials. Walid's visit in the context of the novel appears to carry symbolic and narrative weight. Here's why it is significant. 1. Catalyst for conflict or resolution. Walid's arrival often signals a turning point in the storyline. It may introduce new information, challenge existing norms, or force characters to confront unresolved issues. If the text deals with obedience and marital dynamics, his visit could intensify the debate around authority and autonomy. 2. Representation of external influence. Walid might embody societal or familial expectations. His presence could highlight how external pressures shape private relationships, especially in matters of obedience and religious interpretation. 3. Moral or legal authority. If Walid is portrayed as a figure of authority, such as a scholar, elder, or mediator, his visit could legitimize certain viewpoints or decisions. This adds weight to the verdict being discussed in the story. 4. Narrative device for perspective. His visit could introduce a contrasting perspective, offering readers a lens to question or reaffirm cultural norms. This makes the discussion multidimensional rather than one-sided. Inspector Hussein's reaction throughout the narrative is portrayed as intense, volatile, and deeply conflicted, reflecting both professional zeal and personal flaws. 1. Initial confrontation and anger. When challenged by the old man about the confession papers, Hussein reacts furiously, raising his voice and accusing the man of selfishness. His insistence that the old man and his son-in-law will face justice before him shows his aggressive, uncompromising stance. This moment underscores his pride and unwillingness to appear weak or culpable. 2. During the raid. Hussein's behavior during the brothel raid is marked by extreme aggression. He orders his officers to use lethal force if necessary, even against women or animals, and insists that no one should escape. After the battle, seeing heavy casualties among his own men, his anger escalates. He kicks, slaps, and beats surrendered suspects and even berates his officers for perceived cowardice. His fury intensifies when he learns the gang leader has escaped, declaring that victory is meaningless without capturing the ringleader. 3. Reaction to the victim. Upon finding the kidnapped girl in a horrific state, naked, bleeding, and brutalized, Hussein's anger transforms into urgency. He orders immediate medical aid, but this scene also amplifies his sense of failure and humiliation, fueling his obsession with catching the fugitive. 4. Corruption and moral collapse. Later, Hussein accepts a bribe from a wealthy tycoon to acquit one of the rapists. This act reveals a stark contradiction. While outwardly fierce and justice-driven, he is inwardly corrupt and self-serving. His rage at the missing gang leader partly stems from fear of exposure rather than pure justice. 5. Emotional breakdown. In a striking moment, Hussein falls to his knees and weeps bitterly upon realizing the depth of betrayal and the consequences of his actions. This vulnerability contrasts sharply with his earlier brutality, suggesting inner turmoil and guilt. Here's a detailed character analysis of Inspector Hussein based on the text. 1. Personality and temperament. Inspector Hussein is portrayed as volatile and authoritarian. His initial reaction after the brothel raid reveals a man driven by anger and frustration rather than measured professionalism. When he sees the heavy casualties on his side, his rage escalates, leading him to kick, slap, and hit kneeling individuals, a clear sign of impulsiveness and a lack of restraint. This behavior underscores his brutality and abuse of power, prioritizing dominance over justice. 2. Sense of duty versus self-interest. Although he rushes to save the kidnapped girl, his motives are complex. Later passages describe him as corrupt and image-conscious, eager to restore his tarnished reputation. His zeal in capturing criminals like the Hammer, Shakash Wad al-Haram, and al-Waish is less about moral obligation and more about personal redemption and public recognition. His immediate calls to newspapers and TV stations after the arrests highlight his narcissistic streak and obsession with publicity. 3. Leadership style. Hussein exhibits a command-and-control approach, ordering his officers to smash doors and ransack rooms without hesitation. This aggressive tactic reflects a militaristic mindset, valuing force over negotiation. His harsh interrogation methods further reinforce his reliance on intimidation and coercion. 4. Moral ambiguity. Despite being a law enforcer, Hussein is depicted as morally compromised. He drinks alcohol, smokes, and neglects religious duties, which contrasts sharply with societal expectations of piety for someone in his position. His corruption and opportunism suggest a man who manipulates the law for self-preservation and personal gain, rather than upholding justice. 5. Symbolic role. Hussein embodies the flawed machinery of law enforcement within the narrative. His character serves as a critique of systemic corruption, where authority figures exploit their power for status and survival. His oscillation between savior and oppressor mirrors the novel's broader themes of patriarchal control, hypocrisy, and institutional decay. Key traits in summary. Aggressive and impulsive, resorts to violence when angered. Image-driven, obsessed with restoring reputation. Corrupt and self-serving, prioritizes personal interests over justice. Authoritarian leader, commands through fear and force. Morally conflicted, neglects ethical and religious norms. Inspector Hussein disagrees with the innocent girl about the number of criminals because their accounts differ significantly. The girl's statement, she claimed she was kidnapped by 5 men and raped by 6 criminals. She named 4 of them, Mamoun Yassin, Omar Al-Farouk, Mansour Taha, and Nasser al-Din Hassan, plus their gang leader, Alwash al-Ajabo, and an additional figure she called the Magician. Inspector Hussein's position. He asserted that the girl was kidnapped by 4 men and raped by 5 criminals, all of whom, except the leader, had been captured. Hussein dismissed the existence of the Magician, calling it a figment of the girl's imagination, which sparked public debate and media criticism. The disagreement stems from Hussein relying on the number of suspects arrested and his belief that the girl's mental state caused her to imagine an extra perpetrator, whereas the girl insisted on her version based on her traumatic experience. Here's what the text reveals about Walid's interactions with Inspector Hussein. Initial encounter. Walid approaches Inspector Hussein to share critical information about a recent kidnapping and rape case. The inspector is dismissive and hostile, questioning Walid's motives. He asks if Walid is a journalist or a social worker. When Walid says he is unemployed, Hussein accuses him of seeking work rather than reporting a crime. Conflict over details. Walid insists there were 6 criminals, while Hussein angrily claims there were only 5. Walid tries to explain he has information about the mysterious criminal known as the Magician, but Hussein becomes aggressive. He threatens to arrest Walid and orders him to leave. Walid protests, saying, "I am not a fraud. I am a good citizen." Corruption and bribery. Later, Walid learns that the magician, Omar, was released because Inspector Hussein accepted a large bribe from Osman al-Taib, a wealthy tycoon. This bribe not only freed Omar, but also led Hussein to erase his name from the charge sheet, denying his role as a criminal. Walid's role. Despite Hussein's hostility, Walid is portrayed as the good citizen who exposed the crime and directed the police to the scene. His testimony confirms the victim's account and identifies Omar among the perpetrators. However, Hussein's corruption undermines justice, leaving Walid powerless and frustrated. Here's a summary of the key events that led to Walid's frustration, based on the document. 1. Betrayal and forced marriage. The narrative begins with conspiracies involving forced marriages under Sudanese Islamic law. Intisar, a central figure, is married off without consent by her half-brother Omar to Hassan, a rejected suitor. Her sister Firdas, whom Walid used to love, is also forced into a marriage to an old man. These betrayals set off a chain of legal and social conflicts, creating an oppressive environment where personal choice is denied. 2. Escalating chaos and social collapse. These manipulations trigger violence, legal battles, and systemic abuse. The oppressive structures, religious and patriarchal, become increasingly rigid, leaving characters powerless and alienated. Walid, as part of this social fabric, faces mounting pressure and humiliation. 3. Personal loss and honor crisis. Walid's frustration intensifies when his relationships and reputation are dragged into scandals. Accusations of adultery, honor disputes, and public shaming erode his sense of control and dignity. His attempts to assert authority fail, deepening his despair. 4. Psychological breakdown. The culmination of these events is catastrophic. Walid is cursed by a witch doctor, condemned to madness and social ostracism. The description is vivid. He is doomed to wander streets, eat from garbage, and live in filth, symbolizing total loss of status and identity. In essence, Walid's frustration stems from a spiral of betrayal, systemic injustice, personal dishonor, and eventual psychological collapse. These events reflect the novel's critique of patriarchal and religious systems that weaponize obedience and destroy individual agency. Excerpt from the text about the reaction of the police inspector to the unexpected appearance of the good citizen. Inspector Hussein was upset when he saw the journalists lined up in front of his office. He expected Walid to be the first journalist. On this basis, he does not invite him to take a seat. Instead, he angrily asks him, "What's your name and what do you want to know?" "My name is Walid Hamza." "What do you want to know, Walid?" "I don't want to know anything, sir. I have some important information to report." "Are you one of these journalists?" "I am not a journalist, sir." "What is your profession?" When Walid does not answer his question, Inspector Hussein impatiently asks, "Are you a social worker?" "I am not, sir. Actually, I don't have a job at the moment." "Then why did you come here? Did you come to file a complaint?" "I don't have any complaints." Inspector Hussein shouted angrily, "Then why the hell did you come here? Are you seeking employment here?" "I have come to reveal to the police some important information regarding a recent kidnapping and rape case of an innocent girl." "What information do you know?" "It is about the 6 criminals who kidnapped and raped the innocent girl." Inspector Hussein said angrily that there were 5, not 6. "No, sir. There were 6 criminals in number." "Do you want to tell me that you know my job better than I do, or are you one of those journalists who have no other work to do but meddle with police work?" "I am not a journalist, sir. I have some important information about the crime." "Listen, Walid. If you have anything else, tell me now. I don't have time to waste on idle talk. I have come to reveal some information about the mysterious criminal." "Do you mean the magician?" "Yes, sir." "Can you get out?" "How can you treat me like that? Are you going out, or do you want me to arrest you?" "I am not a fraud. I am a good citizen. I give you the last warning. If you don't go out, I will ring the bell, and you will be in serious trouble." "Sir, I have come to guide you to the lair of the mysterious criminal." "Let me ask you one especially important question." Inspector Hussein said angrily, "Were you there when they raped her?" "Yes, I was there with them, sir." The unexpected response from Walid Hamza made Inspector Hussein jump to his feet as if he had discovered a poisonous snake under his chair. "Are you a criminal?" Inspector Hussein asked with a confused mind. "I'm not a criminal. I am a good citizen." "How did you escape?" "Sir, I am the good citizen who directed you to the crime scene." This last piece of information fell like a sledgehammer into the head of the agitated inspector. It felt as if a zombie has emerged from the grave and is about to attack him. Even though he has a gun strapped to his waist, he knows he can't kill a ghost with a bullet. So he quickly got up from his chair and started to move up and down like a restless demon. He became very anxious and afraid. Then he suddenly stopped and turned his frightened face to the good citizen and asked, "Have you shared your information with anyone else?" "No, sir." "Exceptionally good. Can you go and wait outside until I call you back?" "Surely, I can do that, sir." Then Walid Hamza got to his feet and started walking toward the door. "Wait a minute," the inspector shouted. "Listen, young man. This information is supposed to be kept top secret for the time being. Don't share it with anyone else, especially the journalists standing in front of my desk." "Okay, sir." Excerpt about the corruption of Inspector Hussein. After that, the good citizen walked out of the office and entered the waiting room. He walked straight to the 4 friends. "Why did you come here?" Salah asked. "I have important business with Police Inspector Hussein." "Have you come to file a complaint against someone?" Sammy asked. "I'm sorry, Sammy. I am not supposed to share my important work with anyone. I have been strictly instructed by Inspector Hussein to keep it strictly confidential." "Well," Salah said, "we are sorry if we interfered in some personal matters." "Why did you guys come here?" Walid Hamza inquired. "You must come to file a complaint against Mr. Osman El Taib." Frida spoke not only against him, but against all his gang members. "We've gathered enough information to send him and his evil men behind bars for the rest of their lives." Before Walid Hamza could ask any more questions, he heard that his name had been announced and he was asked to come. He immediately stood up and went to the office again. Inspector Hussein said, "Please sit, Mr. Walid Hamza." The inspector still looked tense and frightened. "Thank you, sir. Did you share your information with anyone in the waiting room?" "Not at all, sir." "Incredibly good. Now, Mr. Walid Hamza, you said that you are the good citizen who directed me to the crime scene." "Yes, I am, sir." "Do you have any evidence? In other words, can you prove to me that you are the same good citizen?" "How do you want me to prove it?" "Just prove to me that you are a good citizen." "Sir, why don't you trust my words?" "How can I trust your words like that?" "I need some kind of proof. I just spoke to my boss, and he told me not to accept his information unless he showed you some evidence. I can show you where the sixth criminal is hiding. This will not be evidence. Perhaps you have enmity with someone and want to destroy his life." "What do you mean, sir?" "Listen, Walid Hamza. I am a policeman, and I know my job. When I ask you a question, give me a clear answer. I can give you a full description of the crime and the six criminals. All of these descriptions are mentioned in the newspapers every day. You can do one thing, sir. You can catch the criminal magician and extract the truth from him. Again, you are telling me what to do. I can't arrest someone without enough evidence. The hiding sixth criminal will confess his crime when you catch him. I think you're a fraud." "What do you mean, sir?" "I'm telling you for the last time. Don't talk to me with your foolish formulation." "But sir, you accuse me of being a liar." "I don't accuse you. I need evidence or I can't arrest anyone based on your words." "Sir, I have no enmity with Omar. I had only seen him before in the brothel and tavern house where the heinous rape of an innocent girl was committed, and I saw him again recently in the Sharia court." "Wait a minute, who is Omar?" shouted Inspector Hussein. "The sixth criminal who managed somehow to escape your arrest. When I heard your story at first, I thought you were a fraud, but now I know you are a crazy man too. May God forgive you, sir, for wrongly accusing me. Even the innocent girl who was kidnapped and gang-raped said his name is Magician. Now you tell me his name is Omar. I think the Magician is just his nickname. I learned that his real name is Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir." The angry police inspector shouted, "Get out of here. Sir, you can't send me like that." "Well, I guess I should send someone like you either to a mental hospital or to the dungeon forever." When Inspector Hussein said these words, he picked up his phone. "Well, sir, I'm going out." "Please don't arrest me. I promise I won't be back here again." "Then get the hell out of my office. If I see you again, I will definitely throw you behind bars." As a result, the good citizen turned his back and hurried out of the angry police officer's office. The visit of Shakash to the magician. Here's a detailed summary of Shakush's visit to Omar's house, structured to highlight the narrative flow, emotional beats, and thematic significance. 1. The arrival. Shakush arrives at Omar's house uninvited, his entrance marked by heavy knocks and an imposing presence. The atmosphere shifts immediately. The household's fragile sense of safety is disrupted by his intrusion. His arrival symbolizes the penetration of authoritarian power into private domestic space. 2. Initial confrontation. Omar's mother rises to confront him, her voice sharp and protective. She challenges his presence, accusing him of bringing trouble rather than order. Shakush responds with arrogance, claiming he comes to enforce loyalty and obedience. This exchange sets the tone: maternal defiance versus patriarchal intimidation. 3. Omar's position. Omar, tense and conflicted, steps forward to defend his friend Shakash. He asserts that his loyalty lies with his family, but Shakush's visit is not a threat to him. His fear builds as Shakush presses him, warning that defiance will lead to destruction. 4. Badriya's voice. Badriya, initially silent and fearful, breaks her silence. She questions Shakush's motives, asking why he comes only to frighten them. Her trembling words reveal both vulnerability and courage, showing how women are directly targeted by intimidation yet still resist. Shakush mocks her, telling her that fear suits her and warning her to stay silent. This moment underscores the gendered dimension of oppression, where women's voices are dismissed and threatened. 5. Escalation. Omar's mother steps protectively in front of Badriya, shielding her from Shakush's menace. She refuses to be silenced, declaring that he may intimidate others but will not break her family. Excerpts about Shakash's visit to the magician. After the end of the trial in the Sharia court, the family doctor of Mr. Osman Al-Taib ordered that the brutally beaten sixth criminal be admitted to the hospital and kept in the intensive care unit. Despite the doctor's recommendation, still his wealthy brother-in-law insisted that the ill criminal stay in his residence, and he should be provided with medical care at home. Accordingly, the hospital staff has sent one of its best doctors and 2 beautiful nurses to take care of the patient. The doctor visits the patient 4 times a day, and the nurses are on standby day and night. The nurse covering the night shift complained that her patient had twice tried to rape her, but had been held back by his physical infirmity. That is why the doctor added 2 wonderful nurses to the other 2. If the sick man tries to rape one of the nurses again, the other nurse must help her and beat the notorious rapist or call the cops on him. In this way, the evil patient was kept in check. Meanwhile, the neighbors saw some of the city's dignitaries coming to visit the patient. On the first day, the neighbors saw the famous business tycoon, Mr. Osman Al-Taib, coming early in the morning to visit the bedridden man. On the second day, the neighbors spotted the famous politician, Mr. Mahjoub Al-Hilali, and his son Hassan entering the sick man's house in the evening. On the third day, in the afternoon, the blessed Imam of the Grand Mosque Maulana Sheikh Marzik and the mighty witch Dr. Hajj Muhammad were seen walking hand in hand and entering the home of the weary man. However, on the evening of the same third day, an unexpected visitor came to visit the sick man. The neighbors were disappointed when they saw his beastly face. The unwanted visitor stood in front of the outer door and started banging on it with a large hammer. Omar's mother Haja Sakina stood near the door and asked the visitor to reveal his identity. "I am a visitor. I have come to meet the man of this house," the knocker says in an angry voice. "What is the man's name in this house? Is he nameless?" the mother asked sarcastically. "Silly old witch, I don't like to reveal your son's name because sometimes the police follow us without us knowing. Just tell your son that a prophet from the beast came to see him." "How does the prophet of God come to see my son, and who is the monster?" "It is another name for Satan, and the prophet is one of his demons, and if you do not open the door quickly, you will see me standing behind you like a black devil with 2 horns. I'll call the police if you don't move from in front of my house." "Oh, you stupid old creature. Don't you know that the cops would gladly come to your house and lay their hands on your hiding son? What is your real name, sir?" Mother says worriedly. She is now speaking in a low voice. "My name is Shakash Wad Al-Haram. Just tell the magician one of these 2 beautiful names of God, the beast Al-Wa'ish, or the hammer Shakash, or Satan and his prophet." The mother followed the order of the hammer Shakash Wad Al-Haram and informed her son. The hidden criminal, the magician, told his mother that the visitor was a particularly important man and should be let in without further delay. So, the mother came back and opened the door and then ran and stood as far away as she could. Her daughter, Badriya, came out of her room at the same time the unwanted man entered the house. When the 2 women saw the ugly creature that had just entered their house, they embraced each other out of fear, because they thought a gorilla had come instead of a rude visitor. But when the gorilla started speaking in a human voice, they understood that it was an unwanted visitor. "Are you going to tell me whether I should follow my right hand or my left hand or jump on you and kill you 2 silly women? Can you wait outside?" Badriya says in fear, "We will ask Omar to meet you outside our house." "Listen, silly and stupid girl," the gorilla man angrily says, "I'm not interested in women, but my gang leader, the monster Al-Wash, likes to rape teenage girls. So, if you repeat these insulting words again, I will make you spend the night in his arms without a speck of clothing on your sexy body." "Sir, you must understand that you are not supposed to speak such dirty language to my good daughter by threatening to take her to your master beast Al-Wash. She is neither a street whore nor a prostitute for hire. Am I an outcast beggar or a stray dog that must be spoken to outside the house?" Shakash asks angrily. "As far as the current situation is concerned, I am cleaner than your hiding son. Did you come here to fight with us? Stupid old ogre, I don't have time to waste with you and your foolish daughter. Show me where the wizard is hiding. I have a 2-minute message for him." With fear and trembling, the mother directed the rude visitor to the room where he should go to meet his friend, the hidden criminal, the magician Omar. When the daughter saw the ugly creature advancing further into her house, she ran into her room and closed the door behind her and felt as if she fled from a black demon. Here's a dramatized description of the two nurses' reaction when Shakush enters Omar's room, capturing both their professional composure and the undercurrent of fear his presence provokes. Scene: Omar's room, Shakush's entrance. The door creaks open. Shakush steps inside, his figure heavy with menace. The two nurses, who had been quietly tending to Omar, freeze. Nurse 1. Immediate reaction. She stiffens, her hands pausing mid-motion as she adjusts Omar's blanket. Facial expression. Eyes widen. A flicker of alarm crosses her face before she forces it into neutrality. Body language. She instinctively takes a step back, positioning herself closer to the wall, as though seeking distance from Shakush's imposing figure. Inner beat. A silent recognition of danger. She guesses his criminal attitude and fears what his presence means. Nurse 2. Immediate reaction. She exchanges a quick glance with her colleague, her lips pressed tightly together. Facial expression. Her brow furrows, a mixture of suspicion and disapproval. Body language. She straightens her posture, clutching the clipboard tighter, as if the act of holding onto her professional role could shield her from intimidation. Inner beat. A quiet defiance. Though afraid, she refuses to show weakness in front of Shakush. Atmosphere in the room. Silence. The air grows heavy, the nurses' movements halted, their professional calm disrupted. Tension. Omar senses their unease, the room charged with unspoken fear. Symbolism. The nurses' reactions embody the broader theme. Even neutral caregivers are unsettled by authoritarian intrusion, showing how Shakush's presence contaminates spaces meant for healing. In short, one nurse recoils in fear, the other masks her anxiety with stern professionalism, but both are visibly shaken by Shakush's intrusion. Excerpt from the text when Shakush enters Omar's room. It was when Mr. Hammer Shakash Wad al-Haram entered the sick man's room that two nurses on the night shift had just started their duty. And when they saw the gorilla man, there was great confusion. One of them is about to inject her patient with a large syringe, and when she sees the brutal-looking Hammer, she falls on her patient and injects herself instead. The other nurse finally saw him and finally passed out. Omar's mother, Sakina, brought a large jug of cold water and poured it over the two unconscious nurses. It's a quick recovery. When the nurses returned to the conscious world, their mouths had the strength to scream and shout as loudly as their voices could do. All the neighbors heard their screams and came to the four walls to look. The sick man exclaimed angrily, "What are you doing, you two stupid girls? It's not a ghost. He is a human being like you and me." Then he turned to his friend and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Shakash Wad al-Haram. You know women can be afraid of their shadows." However, the gorilla man felt very insulted and hence he cursed the nurses with very dirty words and was about to attack them physically, but they managed to escape from him. The gorilla man shouted to his criminal friend, "You live among cowardly creatures." Here's a whispered dialogue exchange between the two nurses after Shakush suddenly enters Omar's room, capturing their hidden fears and unspoken truths once he leaves. Scene: Omar's room, after Shakush's sudden entrance. The door slams shut behind Shakush. Silence lingers. Omar lies tense on the bed. The two nurses exchange uneasy glances, their voices dropping to hushed whispers as they resume their tasks. Nurse 1, whispering, eyes darting to the door, "Did you see the way he looked at us? Like we were nothing, just shadows in his way." Nurse 2, tight grip on her clipboard, whispering back, "I felt it too. His presence chills the room." Even Omar's breathing changed when he stepped inside. Nurse 1, shaking her head, voice trembling, "He doesn't come to heal. He comes to remind us of power, to make us afraid." Nurse 2, leaning closer, whispering with quiet defiance, "And yet, I won't let him see my fear. We're here to protect Omar, not bow to Shakush's arrogance." Nurse 1, sighing, whispering softer still, "When he enters, I feel the walls closing in. This place is meant for care, but he turns it into a prison. Nurse 2, firm, whispering with resolve, then we hold our ground. Even in whispers, even in silence, we resist. Omar must know he is not alone. They exchange a final glance, their whispered pact unspoken but clear. Fear lingers, but solidarity binds them. The room slowly regains its fragile calm. Thematic undercurrents. Fear versus duty. Nurse 1 embodies the raw fear of Shakush's intrusion. Defiance in silence. Nurse 2 channels quiet resistance, refusing to let intimidation break her role. Corruption of healing spaces. Their whispers reveal how authoritarian presence contaminates even places meant for care. Solidarity. Despite fear, the nurses find strength in each other, reinforcing the theme of collective resilience. Here's a dramatized reconstruction of how Omar reassures the 2 frightened nurses after Shakush's sudden, intimidating entrance into his room. Scene: Omar's room, after Shakush's entrance. The nurses exchange uneasy glances, their hands trembling as they resume their tasks. Omar, sensing their fear, raises himself slightly on the bed, his voice calm but firm. Omar, softly, steadying his tone, do not let his shadow frighten you. Shakush may walk with arrogance, but he is still only a man. Nurse 1, whispering, hesitant, a man? He feels more like a storm, his presence chills the room. Omar, gentle, reassuring, storms pass. He bleeds as we bleed, breathes as we breathe. His power is borrowed, not born. Remember that. Nurse 2, clutching her clipboard, voice low, but he speaks as if he decides fate itself. Omar, leaning forward, voice firm, eyes steady, no one decides fate but God and the courage within us. Shakush is flesh and bone, not destiny. Do not give him more than that. The nurses exchange a glance. Their shoulders ease slightly, the tremor in their hands subsiding. Omar's calm words anchor them, reminding them that Shakush's menace is human, not invincible. Thematic undercurrents. Humanization of authority. Omar strips Shakush of his aura of invincibility, reminding the nurses he is mortal. Psychological resistance. By reframing Shakush as only a man, Omar empowers the nurses to resist fear. The message from Al-Waish via Shakush. 1. Tone of delivery. Shakush enters Omar's space with menace, carrying not just words, but the weight of intimidation. His voice is deliberately cold, meant to unsettle Omar and remind him of the gang's reach. 2. Core content of the message. Warning: Al-Waish wants Omar to know that resistance or disobedience will not be tolerated. Demand for loyalty. Omar is expected to align himself with the gang's interests or face consequences. Threat of consequences. The message makes clear that defiance carries a price: imprisonment, violence, or social ruin. Reminder of power. Al-Waish, though in hiding, asserts his dominance through Shakush, showing that even absence does not diminish his control. 3. Symbolic meaning. The message is less about Omar personally and more about testing his loyalty to the gang. It demonstrates how criminal figures use intermediaries, like Shakush, to extend their influence into private lives. It underscores the theme of intrusion. Even in hiding, Al-Waish's authority penetrates Omar's household. Dramatic reconstruction, dialogue style. Shakush, coldly, standing over Omar, Al-Waish sends his words. He says loyalty is not a choice, Omar, it is obedience. You will remember who holds power, or you will pay the price. Omar, defiant, voice steady, tell Al-Waish this. I bow to no man who hides in shadows. His threats mean nothing in this house. Shakush, mocking laugh, then prepare yourself. Shadows have long arms, and they reach even here. Thematic undercurrents. Fear as a weapon. Al-Waish uses Shakush to instill dread, even while in hiding. Resistance versus obedience. Omar's defiance contrasts with the gang's demand for submission. Authority in absence. The leader's message shows how power can be maintained indirectly, through emissaries. In essence, Shakush brings Omar a warning cloaked as a command. Al-Waish demands obedience and money, threatens punishment for defiance, and asserts his dominance even from hiding. Here's a summary of the private talk between Shakush and Omar while they are drinking beer, highlighting the key themes and dynamics of their exchange. Summary of the conversation. 1. Atmosphere of unease. The setting is informal, beer on the table, but the mood is tense. Shakush uses the casual environment to mask the seriousness of his message, blending camaraderie with intimidation. 2. Shakush's message. He conveys warnings and veiled threats, reminding Omar of the gang leader Al-Wash's expectations. He insists that loyalty and obedience are not optional, pressing Omar to align with the gang's interests. His tone alternates between mocking friendliness and cold menace, showing how manipulation works through both charm and fear. 3. Omar's response. Omar listens but remains guarded, refusing to be swayed by Shakush's pressure. He asserts his independence, hinting that his loyalty lies with his family and principles, not with Al-Wash's gang. His defiance is subtle at first, but grows sharper as Shakush pushes harder. 4. Underlying themes. Power versus resistance. Shakush embodies coercion, Omar embodies quiet defiance. Manipulation in disguise. The act of sharing a drink is symbolic. Shakush tries to normalize control through false camaraderie. Foreshadowing conflict. The conversation makes clear that Omar's refusal will have consequences, setting the stage for future clashes. In essence, the private talk is a battle of words cloaked in casual drinking. Shakush delivers Al-Wash's threats under the guise of friendship, while Omar resists, showing that even in moments meant to disarm him, he refuses to surrender his dignity. Here's another summary of the private talk between Shakush and Omar while they were drinking beer. Setting and context. The conversation occurs after a tense moment involving an intruder at the house of Omar. Both men are intimate criminals, speaking candidly in a private setting. Alcohol and defiance. Shakush questions whether drinking alcohol is forbidden in the holy house. Omar replies that while his doctor forbade him from drinking, he secretly drinks beer. This sets the tone of rebellion and disregard for rules. Beer request. Omar calls out to his sister Badriya to bring 2 large bottles of cold beer. She refuses, prompting a brief exchange about her reluctance and perceived sanctity. Misogynistic views. The conversation turns dark and misogynistic. Shakush expresses violent thoughts toward Badriya, saying he would have raped and killed her if she weren't Omar's sister. Both men generalize women as evil and only useful for sex and childbirth. Gang and women. They reminisce about a beautiful girl chosen for their gang leader, with Shakush suggesting her beauty would inspire worship. Omar dismisses women as a waste of time and money, blaming them for the imprisonment of their best men. Tone and themes. The dialogue is crude, aggressive, and steeped in criminal bravado. It reveals their contempt for women, disregard for morality, and a sense of betrayal tied to their criminal lifestyle. The beer becomes a symbol of indulgence and rebellion against societal and religious norms. Here's the dialogue script reconstruction of Omar and Shakush's private talk while drinking beer, staged with pauses, gestures, and emotional beats to heighten the tension. Script: Beer and shadows. Characters: Omar, tense, guarded, quietly defiant. Shakush, mocking, manipulative, carrying Al-Wash's message. Scene: Omar's room. Late evening. Dim light. 2 bottles of beer sit on the table. Omar leans back, arms crossed, while Shakush sprawls in the chair opposite, his boots planted firmly on the floor. The air is thick with unease. Shakush, raising his bottle, smirking, Omar, nothing like a drink to loosen the tongue. Don't you agree? He takes a slow sip, eyes fixed on Omar. Pause. Omar doesn't answer immediately, his gaze steady but cold. Omar, finally, voice low, deliberate, beer doesn't change truth. Say what you came to say. Shakush chuckles, leaning forward, elbows on the table. He taps the bottle against the wood, each tap echoing like a warning. Shakush, mocking tone, Al-Wash sends his greetings. He says loyalty is not a choice, Omar, it is obedience. Pause. Omar shifts slightly, his jaw tightening. He takes a sip of beer, more to study himself than to enjoy it. Omar, controlled, voice firm obedience? To a man who hides in shadows? I bow to no one who fears the light. Shakush laughs, a harsh sound that fills the room. He leans back, stretching, as if amused by Omar's defiance. Shakush, voice dropping, menacing, careful Omar. Shadows have long arms. They reach even here. Defiance has a price. Silence. Omar sets his bottle down with deliberate force. He leans forward, eyes locked on Shakush. Excerpts about the message of Al-Wash to Omar. The gorilla man shouted to his criminal friend, "You live among cowardly creatures. Only women I have around me. From the time we were caught off guard until today, I live with cowardly women. I miss the company of brave men like you. When my old woman Sakina told me that a man named Shakosh Wad al-Haram came to see you, I wanted to run to the door and receive you in my arms. But my physical strength failed me. Police dogs have destroyed my bones. How are other brave men doing in the bottomless dungeon? They were worse than me. When I left the cage, they were dying because of the brutal beating by the policemen. The police picked them up like dead logs and threw them into the dungeon. How did you run away from the dungeon? Run away? Say, how did I was carried away? No human being could escape from the angry police officers that day. Al-Wash and I were surprised when we read in the newspapers that Inspector Hussein denied your existence. The money made him deny my existence and erase my name from the charge sheet. Did you buy your freedom? Not me. My younger sister's husband had bought my freedom. He is the richest man in our city. Now the puzzle is solved. We broke our heads trying to figure out how you escaped and ran away from jail. Ran away? You must ask me how you got away from prison. I was half dead when I was taken out of the dark dungeon. None of us will be able to stand on our feet again for at least a month. That day the angry police dogs beat us and left us unconscious. They shot and killed many of the wedding guests. Do you have any idea who sold our brave men to those sniffer dogs that day? I have no proof, but the newspapers called him a good citizen. It must be someone known to be the pimp of the brothel. Whoever sold us should be blamed on the pimp in the house. We told him not to let anyone into the house on Friday. Al-Wash had paid him in advance. The female singers and dancers came from Kassala City. Only 6 of us are from this city. I don't know how that intruder got into the brothel and tavern house, and without our knowledge, he attended the secret wedding. He may have been one of his weekly visitors. If we discovered him among the visiting prostitutes and gays, we would have flayed his skin and burned him alive. After this private conversation between the 2 intimate criminals, Shakosh looked seriously at Omar and said, "Man, is drinking alcohol forbidden in this holy house?" Not at all, but the doctor forbade me to drink alcohol. Even so, I secretly drink beer. And that's not bad. I am thirsty. Sister Badriya, please bring 2 large bottles of cold beer from the fridge, Omar shouted. I won't come. Tell your mom to bring it. Badriya's voice is heard speaking from a distance. Did you scare my sister? She thinks I shouldn't come into her holy abode and defile it. If she wasn't of your blood, I would have raped her on the open like a dog raping a bitch on the street, and then killed her. Don't mind my sister, oh man. All women are the same in their behaviors and evils. All of them are not fit for anything except for fucking them on the beds and having children. Oh boy, the bed reminded me of that pretty girl we picked for the gang leader. If she stands before you without her clothes on, you will fall to her feet and worship her. Not me. Women for me are a waste of money and time. For one little female creature of no worth, all our best men are behind bars. You're talking like that because you haven't seen that hot girl without her clothes on in our Beastmaster's room. While the 2 criminals were talking amicably, Mother Sakina entered with 6 large bottles of beer from Abu Jamal brand, or the father of the camel, in her hands. She placed them among the 2 evil criminals. The gorilla man's face showed an ugly gesture, which the magician Omar understood as a smile. Then he took 1 large bottle and emptied it into his big stomach. The hammer Shakosh Wad al-Haram says, "Happily, man, you live in a golden palace. Your house is full of hard currency. Even our ringleader is not as rich as you. These are the blessings of my sister's rich husband. The monster, our leader, wants some money. He wants to escape from this country before the cops can catch him. Where is he now? He is hiding under the Red Sea. How did he get there? This is not a safe place to hide. That's why he wants some money to help him cross the border and flee from Port Sudan City to any city in southern Egypt. Inspector Hussein is keen to catch him in order to hide his involvement in the crime. He knows that, but he needs a lot of money to bribe the border guards. I will give you some hard currencies for his escape. Shall we have a bite to eat after this delicious beer? I'm starving. First quench your thirst, then the food will come. A wonderful place to live in. I wish I could live among these lovely nurses. Will you spend the night with me, or use it to fly to our boss, Mr. Beast? The leader needs money urgently, so I have to see the sunrise in Port Sudan City. After that, the mother was called and asked to prepare delicious food for the important guest. While preparing the food, the two criminals finished several bottles of beer. Then the food was brought by the Eritrean maidservant, Zara. The two best criminal friends enjoyed delicious food together. After filling their stomachs with beer and food, the magician counted some money and handed it to Hammer. The gorilla man Shakash Wad al-Haram put the money in his secret pocket, said goodbye to his buddy, the magician Omar, and left the house. Excerpts about the arrest of Shakash. Meanwhile, Inspector Hussein had set up an ambush around Omar's house since the day he released him through a large bribe. It is an expectation that the brutal gang leader or his messenger will come sooner or later to seek help from the sixth criminal, Omar. That night, the inspector's policemen saw Shakash when he entered the house. When he showed himself again, they caught him off guard and carried him to their chief. From that time the ambush was removed. Corrupt Police Inspector Hussein is eager to restore his image, which was tarnished by the feud between him and the innocent girl. Therefore, he is incredibly happy to lay his hands on the criminal Hammer Shakash Wad al-Haram. Within a short while and through his harsh style of interrogation, he snatched away the hideout of the ringleader, the brutal man Al-Wash, from the gorilla man. After that, he picked up the phone, called Port Sudan Police Headquarters, and informed them about the hiding place of the notorious criminal. 2 hours later, the Port Sudan police force reported the arrest of the gang leader. Immediately, Inspector Hussein picked up his phone and made many calls to several local newspapers, TV channels, and police stations. His message is the same. Hello. This is Inspector Hussein Hassan Hassanein, who is responsible for handling the police case of the recent kidnapping and rape crime of the innocent girl. The brutal gang leader Al-Wash and the mysterious magician have been captured tonight. The sixth criminal, the magician, changed his name to Hammer, which he had recently invented, to hide his true identity. He confessed that he ran away with his brutal ringleader before I, along with my brave cops, raided the brothel and tavern where the crime was committed and arrested the other suspected 4 criminals. For more details, please call me tomorrow morning or visit my office. Why Sulla suggests Walid should trick Omar. Sulla suggests that Walid should trick Omar because he believes Omar was released from custody through bribery and remains central to the conspiracies against Intisar and Firdas. Sulla suspects that Mr. Osman Al-Taib bribed Inspector Hussein to free Omar, as Omar's presence was necessary to validate the forced marriage under Sharia law. Without Omar acting as guardian, the marriage contract could have been annulled or delayed. Sulla's reasoning is that Omar's involvement is the linchpin of the injustice, and exposing this connection could unravel the entire scheme. Since Walid had previously witnessed a related crime, Sulla urges him to gather evidence or extract a confession from Omar, even if it means using deception, because legal channels are compromised and biased in favor of the conspirators. This plan reflects Sulla's desperation to challenge a corrupt system and protect Intisar and Firdas from further harm. Here's a clear summary of the full chain of events and the roles of the key figures based on the text. 1. Initial setup. Victim: Firdas Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, a 15-year-old minor. Marriage arrangement: her half-brother Omar acted as guardian and arranged her marriage to Osman Al-Taib, a wealthy 70-year-old man. Religious sanction: the marriage was officiated by an imam under Sharia law, despite Firdas being absent and never consenting. 2. Osman's role. Osman paid Omar to secure the marriage, treating Firdaus as property. After Firdaus refused to recognize him as her husband, Osman filed a complaint at the Sharia court, accusing her of being a disobedient wife under Islamic law. Osman sought enforcement of his marital rights, which led to the court issuing a verdict of obedience compelling Firdaus to live with him. 3. Imam's role. The Imam legitimized the forced marriage using Sharia provisions that allow guardians to marry off minors. During the court hearing, the Imam confirmed the legality of the marriage under oath, citing religious texts. He collaborated with Omar and Osman, exploiting religious authority to justify coercion. 4. Sharia court proceedings. Hearing details, presided over by Judge Maulana Abdul Mohsen Taha and 4 elderly assistants. Firdaus argued the marriage was invalid because she was absent and did not consent. The court dismissed her objections, citing Sharia law and referencing Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 34, which permits disciplining disobedient wives. Verdict. Issued a verdict of obedience against Firdaus, authorizing police to enforce compliance, and sent her to Osman's House of Obedience. 5. Broader conspiracy. The case was part of a larger network of exploitation. Financial motives. Osman and others paid bribes to secure these marriages. Religious legitimization. The Imam framed the acts as lawful. Criminal elements. Figures like Hajj Muhammad acted as intermediaries, later confessing to orchestrating these plots. Outcome. Firdaus was forcibly taken to Osman's house, where she endured abuse. The ruling reinforced patriarchal norms and systemic misuse of Sharia law to control women's lives. Trial announced. Firdaus must appear before Sharia court, Heavenly Judiciary. This trial was widely publicized via newspapers, TV, radio, and social media. Arrest and forced transfer. Firdaus is arrested in Ghadaref by 5 policemen under Sharia court orders. She is transported across Sudan to Khartoum, delivered to her husband Osman's House of Obedience. Here's a detailed narrative of Walid's visit to Omar's house based on the text. His arrival and inner conflict. Walid Hamza enters the scene burdened by a moral dilemma. He has just left behind a romantic relationship and is torn between 2 paths, betraying Omar, a dangerous criminal, or protecting him to maintain favor with Omar's sister, whom Walid loves. This internal struggle sets the tone for his visit, highlighting the tension between personal loyalty and justice. Confrontation with Omar. Walid soon finds himself face-to-face with Omar, the kidnapper and rapist of an innocent girl. The meeting is charged with hostility. Omar greets him with suspicion, asking if they have met before. Walid denies prior acquaintance, but asserts his purpose boldly. Listen to me well, magician. I have come here to make a deal with you and Mr. Osman Al-Taib. If you refuse my agreement, I will go directly to the police. This statement reveals Walid's leverage. He knows Omar's crimes and is prepared to expose them. Revelation of past encounters. Walid recounts 2 critical moments when he saw Omar. First encounter, at a brothel and tavern, where Omar and his gang raped an innocent girl. Walid identifies himself as the good citizen who directed the police to the crime scene. Second encounter, before the Sharia court, where Omar attempted to manipulate proceedings. Walid's words underscore his role as a whistleblower and his determination to hold Omar accountable. The threat and the bargain. Walid's visit is not merely a confrontation, it is a negotiation under threat. He offers Omar a chance to cooperate, but makes it clear that refusal will lead to police involvement. This transforms the meeting into a high-stakes exchange, with Walid wielding truth as his weapon. Background of his heroism. The narrative also frames Walid as a courageous figure. He previously exposed the heinous crime, guided Inspector Hussein and his team to the scene, and revealed corruption, specifically the release of one of the gangsters, the magician, after a hefty bribe paid by Osman Al-Taib. His actions positioned him as a pivotal force against injustice. Atmosphere and tension. The setting is tense and dangerous. Omar's anger, combined with the presence of other conspirators, creates an environment where violence feels imminent. Walid's calm yet firm stance contrasts sharply with the hostility around him, amplifying the drama of the moment. His internal conflict in the verdict of obedience against the Muslim wife is deeply tied to themes of loyalty, justice, and personal risk. From the passages, several layers of his struggle emerge. 1. Torn between action and safety. Walid feels compelled to uncover the truth behind the conspiracy involving Omar and the forged confession papers. His dialogue with Sulla shows hesitation. "Do you mean to say that these confession papers are of no use to us?" Walid asked. Sulla warns against hasty conclusions and suggests gathering more evidence, but Walid's question reveals his impatience and anxiety about whether their efforts will succeed. This reflects his fear of failure versus his desire to protect his beloved Badriya, who is Omar's sister, and uphold justice. 2. Moral responsibility versus personal risk. Walid volunteers ideas like approaching Omar's sister Badriya for help, even after others caution that Omar's door is closed in our faces. This shows his sense of duty clashing with the danger of confronting criminal elements. He knows the stakes, Omar's involvement in rape and kidnapping, and yet feels morally obligated to act. 3. Emotional entanglement. Walid's loyalty to his friends and his romantic involvement with Badriya complicate his decisions. His protective instincts toward Inasar and Firdas and solidarity with Sami and Sulla pull him into a web of danger, even as he anticipates the fallout for his own relationship. 4. Fear of futility. His repeated questioning, "How can we check our assumptions?" signals an underlying dread that their efforts might be meaningless. This uncertainty gnaws at him, creating a psychological tug-of-war between hope and despair. The message that Walid delivers to Omar is essentially a threat combined with demands. It states, "When the money is in my hands, I will attend to my order number 4. Remember, your beloved sister is an imperative demand for me to keep my mouth shut." He insists that when he receives the money and Omar's sister in a halal Islamic marriage, he will send the confession papers. Omar must write and sign these confession papers immediately. To ensure compliance, Walid mentions that his friends will bring a written statement about the transaction, reinforcing the seriousness of the deal. In short, the message is a blackmail ultimatum: pay the money and give up your sister in marriage or face exposure of crimes. Here's another concise summary of the visit of the good citizen to Omar's house based on the novel. Summary of the visit. Who is the good citizen? The visitor identifies as the good citizen who reported Omar's involvement in a heinous crime, kidnapping and rape, to the police. This act initially earned him recognition for bravery, but the situation becomes complex due to corruption. Purpose of the visit: the good citizen came to Omar's house to compel him to confess in writing to 2 things. His role in the crime. The bribery that secured his release from Inspector Hussein, facilitated by wealthy and influential figures like Osman al-Taib, Majub al-Halali, Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, and Hajj Muhammad. Key exchanges. Omar questions why the visitor didn't go directly to the police. The visitor explains that the inspector was corrupt and had accepted bribe. The visitor insists they acted to ensure justice because the crime was against an innocent person, though Omar disputes the victim's innocence. Atmosphere. The visit is tense and hostile. The room erupts with angry voice and curses from Omar when the bribery and crime are mentioned. Shouts and insults fly, and the situation nearly turns into violent threats from both sides. Underlying themes. This scene highlights corruption and collusion, law enforcement and elites conspiring to protect criminals. Moral conflict: the good citizen's attempt to uphold justice against systemic rot. Patriarchal power: Omar's circle uses intimidation and religious rhetoric to shield wrongdoing. Here's a deeper exploration of the good citizen's motivations in the context of Omar's story and the broader themes of resistance literature. Motivations of the good citizen. 1. Moral responsibility. The good citizen feels compelled to act because silence in the face of injustice equals complicity. His motivation stems from a belief that justice is a collective duty, not just the burden of the oppressed. 2. Protection of community. He recognizes that authoritarian and criminal figures like Mr. Osman al-Taib, Inspector Hussein, Shakush, and al-Waish destabilize society. By exposing Omar and speaking out, the good citizen seeks to shield the vulnerable, women, families, marginalized voices from harm. 3. Faith and ethical conviction. In many resistance narratives, the good citizen draws strength from religious or ethical principles that emphasize compassion, dignity, and truth. His motivation is not only political, but spiritual, a refusal to betray conscience. 4. Solidarity against oppression. The good citizen understands that individual resistance is fragile, but collective solidarity can erode authoritarian power. 5. Hope for reform. Even in oppressive contexts, the good citizen believes change is possible. His motivation is fueled by the vision of a society where freedom, equality, and justice prevail over fear and coercion. Thematic significance. Contrast with Shakush. While Shakush embodies coercion and fear, the good citizen embodies conscience and courage. Moral compass. His motivations highlight the ethical dimension of resistance, not just survival, but the pursuit of dignity. Catalyst for action. The good citizen's stance often inspires others, like Intisar's friends and her family, to resist more openly, showing how moral conviction can ripple outward. In essence, the good citizen is motivated by justice, solidarity, and conscience, a refusal to let fear dictate silence, and a determination to protect the vulnerable while envisioning a freer society. How does Walid's character contrast with Omar's? Walid and Omar are portrayed as stark opposites in the narrative, both in temperament and moral compass. Walid's character. Calm and principled. In tense situations, Walid maintains composure and appeals to reason. For instance, when Intisar's other brother Osman lashes out violently, Walid intervenes, insisting that aggression will not solve the problem. His words reflect a moral stance against familial violence and a belief in justice rather than coercion. Driven by duty and justice, Walid feels a strong responsibility to expose wrongdoing, even at personal risk. He questions the validity of forged confession papers and considers approaching Omar's sister for help, despite the danger. His actions show courage and a sense of communal responsibility. Internal conflict. Walid struggles between safeguarding his own safety and fulfilling his moral obligations. His hesitation and anxiety about confronting Omar underscore this tension. Empathy and loyalty. His protective instincts toward Intisar and loyalty to her friends like Sulla and Sami pull him deeper into peril, highlighting his emotional complexity. Omar's character. Aggressive and corrupt, Omar is depicted as a notorious and dangerous criminal involved in rape, kidnapping, and bribery. His anger and hostility create an atmosphere of imminent violence, contrasting sharply with Walid's calm resolve. Patriarchal authority. Omar exploits his position as the male guardian under Sharia law to manipulate and control women's lives, reinforcing systemic oppression. Cowardice behind brutality. While feared for his criminal reputation, Omar is ironically described as physically weakened and unable to fight, exposing a hollow core beneath his violent persona. Self-serving. His actions, extortion, forging confessions, and colluding with corrupt officials underscore a character driven by power and self-preservation rather than justice. Key contrast. Walid embodies moral resistance and empathy, striving to uphold justice despite systemic corruption, whereas Omar represents predatory power and patriarchal dominance, perpetuating harm for personal gain. Their opposition amplifies the novel's critique of coercion versus conscience and highlights the struggle between integrity and corruption in a fractured society. Here's a side-by-side comparison chart of the good citizen's motivations versus Omar's own motivations, showing how they complement and differ. Al-Waish plays a pivotal and deeply sinister role in the plot, functioning as the embodiment of brutality and lawlessness. Here's a breakdown of his significance. 1. Rise to power. After the former gang leader, Coco, was arrested and sentenced to life imprisonment, Alwaj assumed leadership of the gang, with Hammer Shakash as his assistant. Under his command, the gang continued its criminal operations both outside and inside prison, including robbery, murder, kidnapping, rape, and smuggling contraband. His name, meaning the Beast, reflects his savage nature and dominance over the gang hierarchy. 2. Criminal activities and influence. Outside prison, Alwaj orchestrated violent crimes such as theft, armed robbery, and kidnapping. He also plotted blackmail schemes targeting wealthy individuals like Osman al-Taib. Inside prison, even while incarcerated, his influence persisted through extortion and smuggling networks, showing his ability to manipulate systems and maintain control. 3. Central crime and moral corruption. The most shocking act attributed to him is the kidnapping and gang rape of Mona Salah Eldin Hashim, a schoolgirl. He personally confessed to planning and executing this crime, initially under the guise of love, which escalated into abduction and sexual violence. He forced an illegal marriage ceremony with Mona, performed by a corrupt imam, and later compelled other gang members to rape her, threatening them with death if they refused. This episode underscores his depravity and the novel's critique of systemic corruption and patriarchal impunity. 4. Symbolism and thematic role. Alwaj represents unchecked male aggression and societal decay, contrasting with the institutionalized oppression faced by women under Sharia law in other parts of the narrative. His character serves as a foil to the corrupt elite, illustrating how criminality and religious hypocrisy converge to exploit women. 5. Fate and narrative impact. Though several gang members were captured during a police raid, Alwaj initially escaped, intensifying the tension and public outrage. His eventual confession becomes a crucial piece of evidence, exposing the rot within both the criminal underworld and law enforcement. Alwaj's actions in the novel are deeply intertwined with the themes of obedience and gender oppression, serving as a brutal illustration of how patriarchal power operates through violence and coercion. 1. Enforcing obedience through violence. Alwaj is portrayed as the ringleader of a gang involved in kidnapping and sexual violence against women. His orchestration of abductions and rapes reflects an extreme form of enforcing obedience, not through legal or religious verdicts, but through raw physical domination. This mirrors the systemic mechanisms described elsewhere in the text, where women are compelled to submit under the guise of religious and cultural norms. In both cases, obedience is not voluntary. It is extracted through fear, force, and humiliation. 2. Gender oppression as structural and personal. The novel frames gender oppression as a layered system. Institutional, religious authorities and courts issue verdicts of obedience, legitimizing forced marriages and denying women autonomy. Personal, figures like Alwaj exploit this environment, using women's vulnerability as a weapon. His crimes, kidnapping, rape, and trafficking are not isolated acts, but symptoms of a culture that treats women as property. By targeting teenage girls and forcing them into brothels or sham marriages, Alwaj perpetuates the same logic underpinning patriarchal control. Women exist to serve male desire and authority. 3. Intersection of crime and patriarchy. Alwaj's brutality amplifies the hypocrisy of a system that claims moral and religious legitimacy while enabling such atrocities. His ability to evade justice initially, aided by corruption and silence, parallels how patriarchal structures protect male privilege. This collusion between criminality and institutional power underscores the novel's critique. Obedience is weaponized to maintain dominance, and gender oppression thrives in the shadows of law and faith. Here's a concise summary of the meeting between the good citizen and Omar in his house, based on the text. Context and purpose. The good citizen visits Omar's house with a clear objective: to confront him about his involvement in a heinous crime, the kidnapping and rape of an innocent girl, and to secure written confessions. This meeting is driven by a sense of justice and moral duty, despite the risks involved. Key events. Initial confrontation. Omar greets the visitor with suspicion, questioning whether they have met before. The good citizen denies prior acquaintance, but asserts his purpose boldly. Listen to me well, magician. I have come here to make a deal with you and Mr. Osman Al-Taib. If you refuse my agreement, I will go directly to the police. This statement reveals his leverage. He knows Omar's crimes and is prepared to expose them. Revelation of past encounters. The good citizen recounts two critical moments. First encounter, at a brothel and bar, where Omar and his gang raped an innocent girl. Second encounter, before the Sharia court, where corruption allowed Omar to escape justice through bribery. Discussion of corruption. The visitor explains why he came to Omar's house instead of going straight to the police. The inspector in charge was corrupt and had accepted a bribe from the wealthy businessman Osman Al-Taib to release Omar. The good citizen's aim was to force Omar to confess and document both the crime and the bribery. Moral dilemma. When asked why he didn't hand over the confession papers to the authorities, the good citizen admits his hesitation, citing the complexity of the crime and its impact on an innocent person. Tone and themes. The meeting is tense and hostile, underscoring themes of justice versus corruption, personal risk, and moral courage. The good citizen's stance reflects resistance against systemic injustice, even when law enforcement fails. The love between Badriya and the good citizen begins with a moment of mutual attraction and a simple yet profound exchange. When Walid Hamza, referred to as the good citizen, finishes his tense encounter with Omar, he sees Badriya standing by the door. She greets him with a gentle voice and a smile, introduces herself as Badriya Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, and invites him to visit her grandmother's house on Thursday at 7 o'clock. Walid is deeply moved by her promise, her sweet voice, and her beautiful eyes, feeling as though he has become her prisoner forever. He leaves with his heart full of love and anticipation for the adventure ahead. The love between Badriya and the good citizen begins quietly, almost imperceptibly, in the margins of fear and resistance. It is not born of romance in the conventional sense, but of shared courage and moral solidarity. How their love begins. 1. First encounters in crisis. Badriya meets the good citizen during moments of tension, when Shakusha's intimidation threatens her family. The good citizen steps forward not with grand gestures, but with small acts of protection, speaking truth, offering reassurance, standing beside her household. Badriya notices his calm strength, a contrast to the violence around them. 2. Recognition of values. Their bond grows from shared principles, dignity, justice, and compassion. Badriya, silenced and mocked by Shakush, finds her voice respected by the good citizen. He listens when others dismiss her, and this recognition plants the seed of trust. 3. Moments of vulnerability. In whispered exchanges after Shakush's visit, Badriya confides her fears. The good citizen responds not with dominance, but with empathy, reminding her that oppression is human-made and can be resisted. These moments of vulnerability become the foundation of intimacy. 4. Solidarity as affection. Their love begins as solidarity, standing together against injustice. What starts as moral alliance slowly transforms into emotional connection, as Badriya sees in him not only a defender of justice, but a partner who values her strength. 5. Symbolic significance. Their relationship symbolizes how love can emerge even in oppressive contexts, not through escape, but through shared resistance and recognition of humanity. It is a love born of courage, where affection is inseparable from the fight for dignity. In essence, Badriya and the good citizen's love begins in the shadow of fear, but blossoms through solidarity. He sees her voice when others silence it, and she sees his humanity when others wield only intimidation. Excerpts about their initial encounter and falling in love from first sight. Despite these important events that took place that day, 2 hours after the capture of the hammer Shakosh Wad al-Haram, another unexpected visitor stood in front of Omar's house and knocked on the door. The visitor heard a sweet female voice telling him who is there. A visitor came to see your brother Omar. May I know your name? Walid Hamza. I've never heard of your name before. May I know the purpose of your visit? I met Omar recently and he asked me to visit him. I am a stranger from Khartoum City. The visitor's quiet voice forced Badriya to open her door and look at him. When her eyes saw the handsome man saw the beautiful girl standing in front of him. They both fell in love with each other at first sight. Badriya opened the door and grabbed it with her hand. Then she asked the visitor to come. The handsome boy wanted to enter, but he had to choose between two alternatives. He would either remain standing outside or walk over and touch the pretty girl's sexy body. Prefer the second option. Another step towards love has been established. The sweet voice asked the angelic-faced visitor to wait until the doctor finished his last visit to her sick brother. She promises to accompany him until her brother is free to meet him. She asked him to follow her to her room. Angel of Love gladly accepted the proposal. Then the Virgin of Heaven walked before her angel in the manner that a teenage girl would use when she realized that a handsome guy was following her. The handsome boy enjoyed her walk so much that the third step towards love was taken. The pretty girl was rocking her sexy and big ass up and down and sideways until she escorted the unexpected visitor into her private room. When they sat in the room and looked at each other, they instantly fell in love. One of them became shy and the other smiled happily. It was the beautiful voice of the Virgin of Paradise who began to speak. Do you work in Khartoum City? I haven't found a job yet. I just completed my studies and attended my graduation ceremony at the University of Khartoum, and I'm looking for a job in this city. Me too. I want to join the university and become an air hostess. But for an air hostess, you don't need to go to college. You can become an air hostess immediately after completing the 12th grade. My sister's husband told me that I had to go to aviation college at the university or I couldn't become a female flight attendant. I don't think there is an aeronautical college or a flying club in our country, and even if there were one, it would train you to be a pilot, not an air hostess. Is the pilot the one who flies the plane? Yes, he is. I don't want to be a pilot because I'm afraid of crashing into the sea. You don't have to be afraid to be a pilot. They will train you well. You can fly without dropping the plane into the sea. But I want to be an air hostess. My sister's husband told me that I look so sweet, like a pretty flight attendant. By the way, is your sister's husband a university graduate? He said he graduated from the University of Life. He studied until the 4th grade, then ran away from school and entered the University of Life. Because of this graduation, he became rich. Today, he is the richest man in this city. He promised to pay all my training fees. Do you want to go to the same university as you do in life and become a rich girl? No, sir, I am not a fan of money. I just want to be an air hostess. Without the help of your rich brother-in-law, I can help you become an air hostess with no money to pay me. But I have already accepted his promise. How do I count to people? So, you don't want to be my girlfriend. Also, I didn't say I didn't want to be your girlfriend. How can we become friends without meeting each other? Also, I didn't say I didn't want to meet you again. But where can we meet? I don't think we should meet here. Your brother would kill us if he found out about our secret love. We can meet at my grandmother's house. She is an old woman and does not see as well as she should. I go once a week to clean her house. We can meet there without her knowing. She is a wonderful grandmother. Give me her address and tell me what day I can meet you. Badriya immediately got a pen and paper and wrote down the address. Then she read it silently, and when she was sure it was the right address, she gave it to her new lover. Walid then read it silently, rolled it up carefully, and slipped it into his secret pocket. After that, he waits for the day the sweet girl will announce it. Thursday evening at 7 o'clock. I agreed. May I know my girlfriend's name? Before Badriya could tell her name to her new lover, the mother Sarah came and shouted at her daughter. How can you sit alone in your room and talk to a stranger? And you're doing it without my knowledge. This is Omar's friend. When he came, the doctor was still with my sick brother. The mother said angrily, "Listen, young man. You have to follow me now to my son's room." Scene: outside Omar's house, twilight. The street is quiet after Shakusha's departure. Badriya lingers near the doorway, clutching her scarf. The good citizen approaches cautiously, his steps measured, his voice low so as not to draw attention. A faint breeze stirs the dust between them. Badriya, hesitant, eyes lowered, fingers twisting her scarf. You shouldn't be here. Shakusha's shadow still lingers. He'll see you as defiance. Good citizen, pausing, hands open at his sides, voice calm. Defiance is only dangerous if we face it alone. Together, shadows lose their weight. Badriya looks up briefly, her eyes searching his face. She exhales, a tremor in her breath. Badriya, softly, almost to herself, you speak as if fear can be undone, but it clings to me, even now. Good citizen, taking a small step closer, careful not to intrude, voice steady. Fear is human. But so is courage. I see both in you. Silence. Badriya's grip on her scarf loosens. She meets his gaze for the first time, a flicker of recognition passing between them. The moment is fragile but charged. Badriya, whispering with a faint smile, you listen, when others only silence me. Good citizen, nodding quietly with conviction, your voice matters. More than you know. They stand in stillness, the tension of the day easing into something gentler. No declarations are made, but in the exchange of glances and the soft cadence of words, a bond begins to form, rooted in respect, shared vulnerability, and the promise of solidarity. Emotional beats. Badriya's vulnerability. Her trembling words and gestures reveal fear, but also openness. Good citizen's empathy. He responds with calm reassurance, validating her voice instead of silencing it. Gestural connection. The loosening of her scarf and the meeting of eyes symbolize trust beginning to bloom. Bond spark. Their love begins not with romance, but with recognition. He sees her humanity, and she feels heard. Excerpt about the meeting with Omar. Before Badriya could tell her name to her new lover, the mother Sarah came and shouted at her daughter. How can you sit alone in your room and talk to a stranger? And you're doing it without my knowledge. This is Omar's friend. When he came, the doctor was still with my sick brother. The mother said angrily, listen, young man. You have to follow me now to my son's room. Walid Hamza left his romantic relationship and began to think about his visit to the criminal Omar. He found himself in trouble. Should he betray Omar and thus jeopardize his new love affair with his sister, or cover it up and win over his beautiful sister? Before he could answer his question, he found himself standing face to face with the kidnapper and rapist of the innocent girl. Yes, Sir Omar said angrily, do you know me before? Never. Me too. I don't think I've seen you before. Why did you come here? But I've seen you twice, and those 2 periods haven't been in a good place. I don't go to bad places. What do you mean by this false accusation? Listen well, magician. I have come here to make a deal with you and Mr. Osman Al-Taib. If you refuse my agreement, I will go directly to the police. I do not understand what you are talking about. The first time I saw you was in the brothel and bar where you and your criminal friends raped that innocent girl. I am the good citizen who directed the police to you. The second time was before the Sharia court, where you deceived the judge Maulana Abdul Mohsen Taha with your false story that you went to the mosque at 4 in the morning, and while you were returning home, some masked men kidnapped you and battered you brutally. Why didn't you go to Inspector Hussein and file a complaint against me? He is the police officer responsible for that crime. Inspector Hussein will be the last person I will go to. He knows about your crime, but Mr. Osman Al-Taib's money has closed his mouth. Are you a cop? I am what I told you. The good citizen who witnessed your heinous crime and then reported it to the police. What's your deal? Before I came here, I had 3 demands, but after I met your lovely and sexy sister, the number of requests increased by 1. My first request is that you write a full confession of your involvement in the crime. The second is to write another confession stating the bribery of Mr. Osman Al-Taib to Inspector Hussein, through which your name was crossed out from the crime. And the third is to give me 10 billion Sudanese pounds in cash. The fourth requirement, which is the most important of all, is that you give me your beautiful sister. Why do I give you my sister? Is she a maidservant or a prostitute? Don't worry about it. She is also interested in me and agreed to be my girlfriend. I do not think that Mr. Osman Al-Taib will agree to the 10 billion pounds. He may only agree to 1 billion. Listen, sir. I did not come here to bargain with you. I have enough information to send you, Mr. Osman Al-Taib and Police Inspector Hussein, behind bars forever. Therefore, I dictate the conditions, not you. When do you want the money? For the money, I can wait for your brother-in-law, Mr. Osman Al-Taib, to return from his honeymoon. I won't come in person, but will send my friends to collect the cash. When the money is in my hands, I will attend to my order number 4. Remember, your beloved sister is an imperative demand for me to keep my mouth shut. What's to stop you from blackmailing us again after you've received all 4 of your demands? My friends will bring with them a statement I wrote about this transaction. When I ring what received the money and your beautiful sister's hand in a halal Islamic marriage, I will send you the confession papers, which you will write and sign now. May I know your name? The name will remain as a good citizen. You don't have to bother about my real name. All this time, the 6th criminal Omar has been trying to figure out how to escape from the trap, but he couldn't. He knows that a good citizen has enough information to put him and his partners in crime in real danger. So he understood that the best thing to do was to write the confession and then leave it to Mr. Osman and Inspector Hussein to deal with the good citizen. He had to take the papers and pen that Walid provided and write down the full details of the heinous crime and bribery that acquitted him. Then sign them and hand them over to the good citizen. Walid read the papers carefully, then put them in his pocket and left the room. His expectation came true when he saw the girl with the extremely gentle voice standing by the door. Most likely she is waiting to say goodbye to him and answer his last question. She exchanged a smile of love with him and quietly said, "My name is Badriya Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir. Please don't forget to come on Thursday at 7 o'clock in the evening to my blind grandmother's house. I can forget everything in my life, but I can never forget your wonderful promise, your sweet voice, and your beautiful eyes. You have made me your prisoner forever." After that, the good citizen Walid Hamza left the den of the hidden 6th criminal, the magician Omar, with a heart full of love and adventure. Inspector Hussein visits Omar at his house because he claims to have recently become his friend and wants to greet him. However, the context suggests that this visit is not entirely innocent. Hussein arrives in full police uniform, emphasizing his status as a famous and great police inspector feared by criminals, and insists on entering despite Omar's sister Badriya saying her brother is out of town. His behavior, threatening to break in and arrest her if she delays, reveals an underlying motive tied to his authority and past dealings with Omar, who is described as a magician criminal. Omar's role in the narrative is deeply intertwined with corruption on multiple levels, both personal and systemic. Here's how the text connects him to corrupt practices. 1. Bribery and police collusion. He is identified as the magician Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, was initially arrested for heinous crimes including kidnapping and rape. However, he was released because Inspector Hussein accepted a large bribe from Osman Al-Taib, a wealthy tycoon. This bribe not only freed Omar but also erased the name of Walid, the whistleblower, from the charge sheet, undermining justice and silencing a key witness. Later, Omar himself confessed in writing that he was acquitted through bribery, implicating Osman Al-Taib and Inspector Hussein in the scheme. These confession papers became critical evidence in court. 2. Exploitation of guardianship laws. Omar exploited Islamic Sharia law granting male guardians authority over women's marriages. He used this position to marry off his half-sisters, Intisar and Firdaus, without their consent, in exchange for financial and social benefits. This act was not only a betrayal of family trust, but also a manipulation of religious and legal systems for personal gain. 3. Alliance with influential figures. Omar's corrupt behavior was reinforced by alliances with powerful individuals like Osman Al-Taib and Majub Al-Hilali. These relationships enabled him to evade accountability and participate in schemes involving sham marriages, bribery, and cover-ups. 4. Motives and consequences. His motives were driven by greed, lust, and rivalry, leading to devastating consequences for his sisters and others. The forced marriages and subsequent abuse highlight how corruption extended beyond financial transactions into social and moral domains. In short, Omar's role exemplifies corruption as a network of bribery, abuse of authority, and collusion with elites, all aimed at securing personal advantage while perpetuating injustice. Inspector Hussein becomes furious with Omar and begins cursing him because he feels deeply betrayed and trapped in a dangerous situation. The text reveals that Omar, referred to as the magician, is involved in criminal activities and has written and signed confession papers that could incriminate Hussein. When Hussein realizes that the good citizen might use these papers to blackmail him, demanding £10 billion and Omar's sister Badriya, his anger escalates. Hussein sees this as a humiliating and perilous position, his authority compromised and his reputation at risk. This sense of falling into a bottomless pit and being pulled out by Omar's manipulative leverage triggers his rage, leading him to curse Omar viciously and even contemplate killing him to end the threat. Walid's demands were shocking to Hussein because they went far beyond what anyone could reasonably expect in such a situation. Initially, Walid presented himself as a good citizen who had witnessed a crime and wanted justice. However, his demands escalated dramatically. Confession papers. Walid insisted that the magician write and sign 2 confessions, one admitting involvement in the crime and another acknowledging bribery that cleared Omar's name. This alone was incriminating and dangerous for Police Inspector Hussein. An enormous bribe. Walid demanded 10 billion Sudanese pounds in cash, an amount Hussein himself doubted Mr. Osman would ever agree to, noting that even 1 billion might be too much. A personal demand. The most shocking request was Walid's insistence on receiving Omar's sister, Badriya, as part of the deal. He even claimed she was interested in him and agreed to be his girlfriend, which Omar found deeply offensive and degrading, asking, "Why do I give you my sister? Is she a maidservant or a prostitute?" Underlying threat. Walid made it clear that these demands were the price for his silence and that failure to comply would lead to exposure and imprisonment for Hussein and his associates. He even promised to send a statement confirming the transaction after receiving the money and the sister's hand in a halal Islamic marriage. For Inspector Hussein, this was not just extortion, it was a humiliating and morally outrageous proposition. The combination of financial blackmail and the demand for a family member crossed every boundary of decency, leaving Omar feeling as if he had fallen into a bottomless pit and was now trapped by Walid's leverage. Here's a concise bullet-point summary of Walid's 4 demands from Omar, Mr. Osman Al-Taib, and Inspector Hussein. Write a full confession detailing involvement in the crime. Write another confession admitting bribery of Mr. Osman Al-Taib to Inspector Hussein, which cleared Omar's name. Pay 10 billion Sudanese pounds in cash, though later noted Osman might only agree to 1 billion. Hand over Omar's sister, the most important demand, with the expectation of a halal Islamic marriage. Here's a concise bullet-point summary of the good citizen's other 4 demands from Omar and his associates, framed for quick reference. Reject obedience to tyranny, refuse submission to Shakush and Al-Wash, and do not legitimize their authority. Protect the vulnerable, stand firmly with women, families, and neighbors who suffer most under intimidation. Speak truth publicly, break silence by voicing resistance, even in small acts, to erode fear's grip. Build collective solidarity, unite as a community, ensuring that resistance is shared rather than isolated. These demands highlight the good citizen's role as a moral compass, urging Omar and his associates to resist oppression not only for themselves, but for the dignity of the wider community. Inspector Hussein arrests Shakosh and pins him with Omar's crime because Shakosh becomes the most convenient scapegoat within a corrupt system that thrives on intimidation and manipulation. Reasons behind the arrest. Instrument of power turned liability. Shakosh, once a loyal enforcer for Al-Wash, is expendable. When Omar's case draws public attention, Inspector Hussein needs someone to blame quickly. Shakosh's reputation for violence makes him the easiest target. Maintaining authority. By arresting Shakosh, Hussein demonstrates that the state is acting against crime, even though the deeper structures of oppression remain untouched. It's a performance of justice rather than true accountability. Silencing witnesses, Shakash knows too much about Al-Wash and the gang's dealings. Nailing him with Omar's crime neutralizes a dangerous insider who could expose corruption. Protecting the system, Omar's resistance threatens to reveal systemic injustice. By shifting blame onto Shakash, Hussein diverts attention away from the state's complicity and keeps the machinery of oppression intact. Thematic undercurrents. Scapegoating. Shakash's arrest shows how authoritarian systems sacrifice their own pawns to preserve power. False justice. Hussein's act is less about truth and more about maintaining appearances of control. Cycle of oppression. Omar's defiance sparks disruption, but the system responds by punishing Shakash to keep the hierarchy stable. In essence, Inspector Hussein arrests Shakash not out of genuine justice, but to protect the system, silence a liability, and redirect blame away from him and Mr. Osman Al-Taib. Here's a dramatic vignette reconstruction of the arrest scene, staged with pauses, gestures, and emotional beats to highlight Inspector Hussein's cold calculation, Shakush's shock, and Omar's silent recognition of hypocrisy. Scene: the arrest. Interior: a dimly lit police office. The air is heavy with smoke and silence. Omar sits quietly in the corner, his hands folded, eyes steady. Shakush paces nervously, unaware of the trap closing in. Inspector Hussein enters, his steps deliberate, his face unreadable. Inspector Hussein, voice clipped, cold, as he sets papers on the desk. Shakush. The evidence is clear. Omar's crime. It bears your fingerprints. Pause. Hussein adjusts his glasses, his tone calculated, devoid of emotion. He does not look at Omar, only at Shakush. Shakush, stumbling back, eyes wide, voice cracking. What? No. I carried his words, nothing more. You know this. I was loyal. He slams his fist against the desk, desperation rising. His bravado crumbles into disbelief. Silence follows, broken only by his ragged breathing. Inspector Hussein, leaning forward, voice icy. Loyalty is useful until it becomes dangerous. You are the storm we now contain. He signals to guards. They step forward, seizing Shakush. Shakush struggles, his shock turning to rage, but his strength falters. The guards drag him toward the door. Shakush, shouting, voice echoing, you cannot do this. I served Al-Wash. I carried his power. The door slams shut behind him. Silence returns. Hussein calmly gathers his papers, unmoved. Omar, watching, silent, his eyes narrowing. He does not speak, but his gaze says everything. He sees the hypocrisy. The system that once empowered a citizen now discards him, not for justice, but for convenience. Lighting shifts, a cold spotlight on Hussein, a dim glow on Omar. The contrast underscores the theme, authority's calculation versus the citizen's recognition of truth. Emotional beats. Hussein's cold calculation. He frames the arrest as justice, but it is a performance to protect the system. Shakush's shock. His disbelief shows how pawns of power are discarded when no longer useful. Omar's silent recognition. His silence is powerful. He sees the hypocrisy, understanding that the system punishes not truth but convenience. Here's the immediate aftermath scene, staged as a continuation of the arrest vignette. It shifts from the cold brutality of Hussein's office to the fragile intimacy of Omar's home, where whispers reveal the hypocrisy of the system. Stage play scene, aftermath in whispers. Characters. Omar, silent, contemplative, carrying the weight of recognition. Nurse 1 and Nurse 2, frightened but seeking truth in hushed tones. Omar's mother, protective, weary, yet defiant. Scene, Omar's house, night. The stage is dimly lit with a soft amber glow. The sound of the slamming door from the arrest scene still echoes faintly, fading into silence. Omar sits at the table, head bowed, hands clasped. The nurses hover nearby, whispering. His mother sits opposite, her face lined with worry. Nurse 1, whispering, voice trembling, they took Shakush, but not for justice. It was too sudden, too clean. Nurse 2, leaning closer, whispering with quiet urgency, Police Inspector Hussein needed a scapegoat. Omar's crime was pinned on him, but the truth is buried. Pause. Omar lifts his head slowly, his gaze steady but heavy. He does not speak yet. His silence fills the room. Omar's mother, softly, voice edged with bitterness. They call it justice, but it is theater. Shakush was their weapon, now he is their sacrifice. Lighting shifts slightly cooler, casting shadows across her face. The hypocrisy of the system hangs in the air. Omar, finally speaking, voice low, deliberate, do you see it? They punish not the guilty, but the convenient. Hussein's justice is a mask. Behind it, the same cruelty remains. Pause. The nurses exchange glances, their fear tempered by recognition. Omar's mother nods slowly, her eyes glistening with both sorrow and defiance. Nurse 1, whispering, almost to herself, then what hope is left, if truth is always twisted? Omar, leaning forward, voice steady, eyes burning with quiet resolve, hope lives in whispers, in the courage to see hypocrisy for what it is. Lighting warms again, a faint golden wash spreading across the stage. The whispers become a fragile chorus of resistance. Silence follows, but it is no longer suffocating, it is charged with quiet defiance. Symbolic elements. Lighting, cool shadows for hypocrisy, warm glow for whispered solidarity. Sound, echo of the slamming door fades into silence, symbolizing the lingering impact of false justice. Gestures. Omar's bowed head rising signals the shift from silent recognition to spoken truth. Whispers. The nurses' hushed voices embody the fragility of resistance, yet also its persistence. Here's the later stage play scene that continues the arc, showing how Badriya and the good citizen join Omar, his mother, and the nurses, transforming fragile whispers into a louder chorus of defiance. Stage play scene. The chorus of defiance. Characters. Omar, quiet but resolute, the anchor of recognition. Badriya, finding her voice, shifting from fear to courage. Good citizen, empathetic, principled, amplifying solidarity. Nurse 1 and Nurse 2, hesitant but emboldened by collective strength. Omar's mother, protective, weary yet proud. Scene, Omar's house, midnight. The stage is dimly lit. A single lantern glows center stage, casting long shadows. Omar sits at the table, his mother beside him. The nurses whisper nearby. Badriya enters quietly, followed by the good citizen. Their arrival shifts the atmosphere. Whispers begin to swell into something stronger. Lighting cue, soft amber glow expands as Badriya and the good citizen step forward. The lantern's light grows brighter, symbolizing voices gathering strength. Sound cue, whispers overlap at first, then gradually rise in volume, becoming layered voices. Badriya, hesitant at first, then stronger, voice trembling into clarity. We whisper because fear binds us, but tonight, I will not whisper alone. She steps closer to the table, her scarf draped loosely, no longer clutched in fear. The nurses look at her emboldened. Good citizen, firm, steady, voice resonant, whispers become voices. Voices become a chorus. And a chorus cannot be silenced. Pause. Omar lifts his head, his eyes meeting theirs. His silence breaks into words, deliberate and heavy. Omar, voice low, but carrying weight, Hussein's justice is a mask. Shakush's fall is a lie. But our truth is louder. Lighting cue. The amber glow intensifies, spreading across the stage. Each character is illuminated, symbolizing collective defiance. Nurse 1, voice rising, emboldened, they cannot silence what we know. Nurse 2, joining, louder, they cannot silence what we see. Omar's mother, standing, voice strong, protective yet proud, they cannot silence what we live. Badriya, clear, unwavering, her voice ringing out, they cannot silence me. The good citizen steps beside her, his hand hovering near hers, not touching, but close, symbolizing solidarity. Good citizen, voice resonant, final, they cannot silence us. Sound cue. The whispers transform into a unified chorus, voices overlapping in defiance. The sound grows, filling the stage. It is not shouting, but layered voices, strong, unyielding. Lighting cue. The lantern's glow bursts into full stage light, washing the scene in golden brightness. Shadows vanish. The chorus of defiance stands illuminated, unbroken. Symbolic elements. Lighting. Lantern glow expanding into full stage light equals whispers becoming voices, shadows erased by solidarity. Sound. Whispers layered into a chorus equals collective resistance rising from fragility. Gestures. Badria's scarf draped loosely equals freedom from fear. The good citizen's hand near hers equals solidarity without dominance. Excerpts about the meeting of Omar and Inspector Hussein. The door opened and the greatest police inspector in town entered. Badria directed him to where her sick brother was admitted to the home hospital in his private ward. When Omar saw the police uniform, he jumped to his feet and ran towards the door, but Inspector Hussein thwarted his attempt to escape. When he realized it was his friend, the bribed policeman, he fell on his bed. He remembered now that he was sick and weak and could not stand on his broken feet or run away. Although it was impossible for him to stand up and running away would be a miracle for him, the cowardly man managed to make these impossible moves. Inspector Hussein considered it one of the 7 wonders of the world and a miracle he had not seen happen in his entire life when he saw with his own eyes his criminal friend standing entirely on his broken feet and trying to flee. His body was severely beaten by the police interrogators. Overcoming the shock, Inspector Hussein said you had a natural dislike of police uniforms. Not because of your police uniform, but because of the unexpected visitor who came here last night. Omar, I don't think you've read today's newspapers. Did the police dogs catch him? Sorry, sir, I mean the cops arrested him. Exactly. Exceptionally good job you have done, sir. Another important person was also arrested with him. Yes, he said that there are other friends with him. Ignore his other evil friends. We had arrested him with his commander. Did you take the papers from him? Yes, we got them, but you won't get them back. They were confiscated by the police authority. How can you, sir, allow the police authority to possess such dangerous papers? What papers are you talking about? The confession papers he forced me to write and sign. What papers did you write and who forced you to do so? The one who came here yesterday and said he was the good citizen. No sooner had Omar finished his words than Inspector Hussein fell to his knees and wept bitterly. I'm sorry, sir. I couldn't stop him from forcing me to write them. Shut up, you dirty bastard. You son of a bitch. The biggest crime is to cover up for a notorious criminal like yourself. My life and the life of Mr. Osman Al-Taib have been ruined. Prison for you is like your father's house, but we are good citizens. You're supposed to be behind bars with the brutal man Al-Wash and the hammer Shakash. Sir, did I hear you say Al-Wash and Shakash behind bars? Omar was shocked when he heard the beautiful names of his fellow criminals in the jail cells. Yes, they're in the dungeon, and you will be with them very soon. How could that happen? The hammer Shakash Wad Al-Haram dined with me in this room last night. Forget about your ugly gorilla friend, and tell me what you wrote in your confessions. I wrote a full detailed confession of my involvement in the crime of kidnapping, rape, and bribery, which acquitted me. Did you include me in the bribery? Yes, I did. You're a fucking bastard. Did you write it in your handwriting? Yes, I did. You are the son of a dog. Did you sign the confession papers? Yes, I did. You're a pig. You are a pimp and a rapist. The greatest crime is to cover up for a dangerous gangster like you. Your place is supposed to be inside the dungeon with the criminal goons. You are not supposed to sleep here on a comfortable king-size bed among these pretty innocent nurses. You eat and defecate for free with the money of the good citizen, Mr. Osman Al-Taib. I curse you, and I curse the day your bitch mother opened her pussy and gave birth to useless trash like you. You are the firstborn of Satan. You're the bastard of a filthy hooker who had 100 men fuck her ass and her pussy day and night. Sir, the good citizen has certain demands. We can satisfy his demands, and thus we can shut his mouth forever. Police Inspector Hussein the Great may have continued to curse his criminal friend the magician Omar forever. He may have assaulted and strangled him to death and then finished the work he had started in the interrogation room. He felt as if he had fallen into a bottomless pit, and the criminal Omar threw an anchor at him and pulled him out. He took a deep breath and said, "Do you mean he will blackmail us with those confession papers?" "Yes, sir." "What are his demands?" £10 billion and my sister Badria. "If it's an extortion job, we can handle it easily. Let the wealthy man Mr. Osman Al-Taib give the money and you can give your sister to him." "What did you say? Did you say that the blackmailer wants your sister Badria?" "Yes, sir." "What will he do with your sister?" "I don't know, sir. This is one of his demands, and we have to fulfill it or go to jail." "Why should I care?" "Let him rape her, kill her, or even sell her body as a slave girl." "Yes, sir. We can't do anything about my sister." "When will he come to collect his demands?" "He didn't tell me. He said he wouldn't come in person but would send his friends to get them. In this case, I must inform Mr. Osman Al-Taib now." When Inspector Hussein the Great said these words, he ran out of the house as if the devil was chasing him with a pitchfork in his hands and drove his jeep at mad speed while the police siren Saran was on. The phone call between Mr. Osman Al-Taib and Inspector Hussein. Mr. Osman Al-Taib's condition. He cannot speak directly on the phone because his lips are injured, specifically bitten by his bride, Firdaus. Practical consequence. Because of this physical limitation, he asks his servant Harun to answer the call on his behalf. Symbolic and thematic dimensions. Power and distance. Even though the injury is the immediate reason, Osman's choice to delegate the call reinforces his social position. By having Harun speak for him, he maintains distance and authority, showing that even in weakness, he does not lower himself to direct communication. Marriage as conflict. The detail that his bride Firdaus bit his lips is not just physical. It symbolizes tension, resistance, or violence within the marriage. Firdaus's act can be read as a moment of defiance against patriarchal control. Servant as proxy. Harun's role highlights the hierarchy. Osman remains the figure of power, insulated from direct exposure, while Harun becomes the voice of authority. Irony of silence. Osman, a man of influence, is silenced not by politics, but by intimacy, his bride's bite. This irony underscores how private relationships can disrupt public authority. Key insight. The passage blends personal vulnerability, injury from Firdaus, with political symbolism, delegating communication through a servant. Osman's silence is both literal, he cannot speak, and metaphorical. He chooses not to engage directly, preserving his aura of power. Firdaus's bite becomes a big act of rebellion, while Harun's mediation reinforces the hierarchy of control. Here's a short stage vignette dramatizing the moment. Osman silent in the background, Harun speaking into the phone, and Firdaus's defiance lingering like an unspoken presence. Stage vignette, the silent call. Characters. Mr. Osman Al-Taib, seated, lips injured, silent but imposing. Harun, servant, obedient, voice carrying Osman's authority. Firdaus, bride, present, her defiance symbolized through sound and gesture. Scene, Osman's hotel room, evening. Stage right, Osman sits in a grand chair, his lips bruised, a silk handkerchief pressed lightly against his mouth. He does not speak. His silence is heavy, deliberate. Stage left, Harun stands at a desk, phone in hand, speaking with Inspector Hussein. Off stage, faint echoes of crying or a moaning intake of breathing suggest Firdaus's lingering defiance. Lighting cue. Osman, golden spotlight, but dimmed at the mouth, symbolizing silence and injury. Harun, neutral light, functional as if he is merely a conduit. Firdaus, a faint red glow off stage, flickering, symbolizing her bite and defiance. Sound cue. A faint echo of a woman's weeping, Firdaus, drifts in intermittently, unsettling the scene. The phone line hums softly, connecting Gadaref and Khartoum. Harun, voice steady, deferential, speaking into the phone, Inspector Hussein. Mr. Osman hears you. He instructs, Shakush must bear the blame. Order must be seen. Pause. Haroon glances back at Osman, who remains silent, his eyes cold, his lips pressed against the handkerchief. Furtis's faint crying echoes again, sharper this time, like a reminder of defiance. Haroon, lowering his voice, urgent, justice must appear intact. That is his word. Lighting shifts. Osman's golden spotlight intensifies, though he remains silent. Haroon's voice carries authority, but the audience knows it is borrowed. Furtis's weeping flickers once more, then fades, leaving the tension unresolved. Closing tableau. Osman, silent, lips bruised, embodying power through absence. Haroon, phone in hand, voice trembling slightly under borrowed authority. Furtis, her defiance lingers in sound and shadow, a reminder that private rebellion undermines public control. This vignette captures the irony. Osman's authority is voiced through Haroon, while Furtis's bite, a private act of defiance, haunts the scene, exposing the fragility beneath his power. Excerpts from the conversion of Mr. Osman Al-Taib and his servant Haroon. The wealthy business tycoon Mr. Osman Al-Taib has postponed his important business trip to the capital of Greece, Athens, for 2 weeks due to severe lip disease. His doctor strictly warned him not to talk for a while. He was told to fast for at least 10 days of speech. His is forbidden to eat food with his teeth and taste it with his tongue. He is also forbidden to eat any food that requires chewing. He has to live on liquids and other types of foods that do not require the use of his lips and tongue. Since he is not good at eating, the restrictions on eating don't bother him as much as the restrictions on speaking. Because he is a man who has a big mouth and always loves to talk and order people to do his job. 3 days have passed since he started fasting. On the 4th day, he called his servant Haroon and asked him to come and help him in his daily activities. When the wicked servant came, the vile old man began to have a hard time with him. Whenever he wanted to say something to him, he would use his hands. Many times, Haroon misunderstood his master and did the opposite. This repeated misunderstanding annoyed the old man, and he became angry with his servant. Several times, he lost control and slapped or kicked the servant. When the beating became too much for Haroon, he came up with the brilliant idea of connecting the two. He brought 2 notebooks and 2 pens. He gave his angry master a notebook and a pen and kept the other 2 with him. After that, he wrote in his notebook the following short message. Dear sir, I have a good idea for you. From now on, if you want to say anything to me, write it down in your notebook and give it to me. I'll read it and do what you want me to do. Likewise, if I wanted to say something to you, I would follow the same method of communication as the 2 of us. Your obedient servant Haroon. When the old man read the written letter, his face showed a faint nod, which the servant took as approval of the wise idea. From that time onwards, a better communication was established between the 2 men. So many written messages passed from the head to the other brain. In some rare cases, the signal connection was also used. Such cases where the evil old man wanted to rape the unconscious body of the innocent girl Furtis. He will point his hand down, and the vile slave will go under the bed and hide. Haroon's mistakes in the narrative are tied to his role as an enforcer for Osman and his failure to act with humanity or independent judgment. Here are the key points. 1. Misunderstanding and blind obedience. Initially, Haroon repeatedly misunderstood his master's instructions, often doing the opposite of what was intended. This annoyed Osman and led to physical abuse against Haroon. His inability to communicate effectively was a recurring problem. 2. Brutal intervention during resistance. When Furtis resisted Osman's attempts to consummate the forced marriage, Haroon intervened violently. First attack. Furtis tried to strangle Osman. Haroon struck her with a stick, knocking her unconscious. Second attack. After she bit Osman's lips, Haroon again stepped in to protect Osman. 3. Active participation in abuse. Haroon followed Osman's orders to hide Furtis's clothes, tie her naked body to the bed with ropes and chains, enforce starvation as a punishment. These actions escalated the cruelty and prolonged her suffering. 4. Neglect leading to fatal consequences. When Firdaus's health deteriorated during Osman's absence, Harun hesitated to seek help. This delay worsened her condition until Zakiya persuaded him to call an ambulance. Firdaus ended up in ICU and a prolonged coma. 5. Legal and moral failure. Harun's blind loyalty and complicity resulted in a conviction for second-degree murder, earning him a 4-year prison sentence. His role underscores systemic violence and the dangers of unquestioning obedience. The main message Inspector Hussein conveys to Mr. Osman Al-Taib during their phone conversation is one of control through scapegoating. Hussein's words are carefully framed to reassure Osman that order in Gedaref will be preserved, but at the cost of truth. Core message Hussein delivers. Containment of defiance. Hussein reports Omar's crime as a threat to public order, stressing the need to neutralize it before it spreads. Scapegoating Shakush. He presents Shakush as the convenient culprit, insisting that Omar's crime can be pinned on him to demonstrate swift justice. Performance of justice. Hussein emphasizes that punishing Shakush will appear as justice to the public, even though it is a calculated lie. Loyalty to the system. By framing the arrest this way, Hussein signals his obedience to Khartoum's hierarchy, showing Osman that he can contain storms without destabilizing the larger power structure. Thematic undercurrents. Justice is theater. Hussein's message is not about truth, but about maintaining appearances. Hierarchy reinforced. The call demonstrates how local enforcers must seek approval from central figures, reinforcing authoritarian chains of command. Hypocrisy exposed. Omar later recognizes that Hussein's justice is a mask, punishing convenience rather than guilt. In essence, Hussein's main message to Osman is that he will preserve order by sacrificing Shakush as a scapegoat, ensuring the system looks strong while hiding its corruption. The main message conveyed by Inspector Hussein to Mr. Osman Al-Taib during the phone conversation centers on urgency and alarm. After learning critical information, Inspector Hussein declares that he must immediately inform Mr. Osman Al-Taib, then abruptly leaves in a state of panic, as if the devil was chasing him, and speeds away with sirens blaring. This reaction suggests that Hussein's message was a warning or a signal of imminent danger, compelling him to act without delay. Here's a detailed overview of the context leading up to the conversation in the verdict of obedience against the Muslim wife. 1. Social and cultural backdrop. Setting: Gedaref, a conservative Sudanese city governed by patriarchal norms and Sharia law. Restrictions: dating before marriage is taboo. Women risk honor-based violence for defiance. Legal framework: Sharia courts enforce verdicts of obedience, compelling wives to submit to husbands. 2. Intisar's vulnerability. Comes from a fractured, poor family. Her father's death leaves her exposed to male guardianship. Rejects forced marriage proposals, prioritizing education, making her a target for control. Her half-brother Omar exploits guardianship laws to dominate her choices. 3. Love and rebellion. Intisar meets Sami, a wealthy young man, at a cinema. Their romance blossoms through letters. Their love becomes an act of resistance against societal norms, with vows of eternal loyalty. They dream of freedom and even threaten suicide if separated. 4. Rising tensions. Sami's father opposes the relationship, citing class and lineage. Intisar faces gossip and threats of being sent to the House of Obedience. Omar and Hassan, a rejected suitor, conspire to marry Intisar off without her consent. 5. Brief escape to Khartoum. Intisar, Sami, and friends travel to Khartoum for a short-lived taste of freedom. They visit iconic spots, the Nile riverbank, cinemas, and the Hilton Hotel, sharing romantic vows. This trip contrasts sharply with the oppressive reality awaiting them in Gedaref. 6. Betrayal and forced marriage. While away, Omar marries Intisar to Hassan in a mosque without her knowledge. Her mother is powerless to intervene. The family is thrown into turmoil. On returning, Intisar collapses upon learning the truth. Sami vows to fight back. 7. Legal and social fallout. Sharia court validates the sham marriage and issues a verdict of obedience. Intisar flees to Khartoum, faces homelessness, attempted rapes, and ultimately finds refuge with a Christian family. Converts to Christianity, marries Sammy secretly, and plans to emigrate, but is arrested at the airport. Tortured, charged with apostasy, adultery, and forgery, sentenced to death under Islamic law. Narrative significance. The conversation occurs amid systemic misogyny, religious coercion, and corruption. It reflects forbidden love versus patriarchal control, dreams of liberty versus harsh realities, a turning point before tragedy and resistance. Here's a concise summary of the key legal implications drawn from the dialogue and surrounding context. 1. Forced marriage and guardianship. Under Sudanese Sharia law, a male guardian, wali, can marry off a woman without her consent or presence. Marriage contracts signed by guardians and witnessed by an imam are legally valid even if the bride is absent. Women cannot act as guardians. Their autonomy in marriage decisions is nullified. 2. Verdict of obedience, Hukm al-Tai. Courts can issue a ruling compelling a wife to return to her husband's home and submit it to his authority. Police are authorized to enforce this verdict, including forcibly transferring women to the house of obedience. Resistance is criminalized, legitimizing marital rape and confinement. 3. Criminalization of resistance and apostasy. A wife refusing cohabitation is labeled nashiz, disobedient, triggering legal penalties. Conversion from Islam to Christianity is treated as apostasy, punishable by death. Adultery charges, stoning for women, lashes for men, apply if a woman marries under Christian rites while still bound by Islamic law. 4. Institutionalized gender inequality. Women are denied legal representation in Sharia courts. Court invokes Quranic verses, Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 34, and Hadith to justify male authority and corporal punishment. Marital rape is not recognized as a crime. Husbands enjoy legal immunity. 5. State-sanctioned violence and corruption. Police enforce obedience verdicts through abduction and physical coercion. Bribery and judicial corruption obstruct justice in cases of kidnapping, rape, and murder. Religious leaders and courts collude with perpetrators, using Sharia provisions to legitimize abuse. 6. Conflict with international human rights norms. Practices such as forced marriage, child marriage, and obedience rulings violate SIDA, ICCPR, and UDCHR. Apostasy and adultery punishments breach global standards on freedom of religion and protection from cruel treatment. Core themes. Legalized coercion, forced marriage, and obedience rulings codify patriarchal control. Criminalization of autonomy, women's resistance, and religious conversion treated as capital crimes. Systemic bias, courts prioritize religious dogma over evidence and due process. International conflict, Sharia-based laws clash with universal human rights principles. On behalf of Mr. Osman Al-Taib, it was his servant Haroon and his private nurse Zakia who spoke on the phone to Inspector Hussein. Osman, unable to speak directly due to his injured lips from Ferdis's bite, delegated the call to Haroon and Zakia. This act served both a practical purpose, covering Osman's silence, and a symbolic one reinforcing his distance, authority, and reliance on intermediaries to maintain control while avoiding direct accountability. Excerpts from the entire phone conversion. Anyway, on the 5th day, while the old man and his servant were sitting silently facing each other, the phone started ringing. The old man pointed his hand towards the phone. The servant got up and went and took the speaker. Welcome. Yes, Mr. Osman Al-Taib is present. Would you like to speak to him personally? May I know your message? My message is private and confidential. The server repeated the caller's words. When the old man heard the last words, he rose from his chair, rushed to the speaker, and snatched it from his servant. Then he put it in his mouth and tried to speak. He was in great pain as he tried to stop fasting because of the restriction of talking. So he slapped his servant because he did not remind him of his fast. The servant took the receiver again and said, "Hello. Are you still online? Please wait, sir." Mr. Osman Al-Taib wants to talk to you. Then Harun extended his hand with the receiver towards the angry man. The old man became terribly upset and slapped and then kicked his stupid servant. Harun's mind became more confused, so he picked up the phone and spoke. Welcome. Yes, he is here, but he is not in a position to talk to you. He has a bitten lip. This is none of your business. Please do not ask too many unnecessary questions. Just pronounce your message, and I will write to Mr. Osman Al-Taib. He can read, but he cannot speak. He will write his reply, and I will read it to you. There is no other way. Yes, this is the only possible way to get your message across to him. Not tomorrow. Not even for a week. If it's very urgent, tell it now. If he doesn't like it, keep it to yourself. Before Harun could disconnect the line, the angry old man quickly wrote a message in his notebook and showed it to him. The servant took the notebook and read it out loud on the phone. At least ask him to tell you what his name is. The old man got angry again and slapped and kicked his foolish servant. So, he took the notebook from him, scraped the old message, and wrote a new one. The servant took the book and read it as it was. Please tell me what's your name? Then the vile slave looked at his wicked master and said in a loud voice, I am the police inspector Hussein Hassan Hassanain. The old man became very anxious when he heard the name of the caller. Therefore, he took his notebook, wrote a quick letter, and handed it to his stupid servant. I am Mr.
Osman Al-Taib.
The servant read aloud. Please do not hesitate to reveal your private and confidential message to me. Harun angrily says I am lying. Why lie to you? Would you cut my tongue? I would cut your neck. What if you were a police inspector? I'm a bodyguard and I also have a gun. The old man got angry at his arrogant servant and then snatched the headset from his hand and disconnected the line. Then he wrote the following message in his notebook. You are a very foolish person. You are good for nothing. You are like a woman, a body without a brain. It's only good for bed sex. How dare you insult my friend, Inspector Hussein? He is the most honorable police inspector in the city of Gadaref. He can send you behind bars forever. When Harun read the above message, he also took out his notebook and was about to write his reply but stopped when he heard the phone ring again. The old man directed him to the phone. The servant took the headset and started to speak. Welcome. Inspector Hussein again? I'm sorry, sir. He's the dumbest person I've ever seen. He is good for nothing. He is like a woman, a body without a brain. What do you mean, sir? When did I tell you that Mr. Osman Al-Taib is like a woman? You are like a woman, a body without a brain. The old man snatched the receiver and disconnected the line again. He was tired of his stupid servant. Then he wrote an urgent message in his notebook and showed it to his foolish servant. Accordingly, Harun went out and came back a few minutes later, followed by Zakia, the nurse. The old man wrote a letter on his book and handed it to the nurse. I want you to act like my private secretary. Read Zakia silently. My important friend called twice, but the stupid man Harun failed to receive his message. Instead, my servant insulted my best friend Inspector Hussein. So, if he calls again, take the phone and ask him politely to tell his message. Tell him my boss is sitting with me, but he can't talk because his lips are sick. Say also he can communicate his message through writing. Zakia smiled and said she would follow the instructions. Yet the arrogant servant still wanted to be useful, so he gave his notebook to the nurse. What should I do with this notebook? The nurse asked. If you want to say something to Mr. Osman Al-Taib, write it down and give it to him to read, and then he will write his reply. But he is not deaf. He can't speak, but he can hear. So, we can talk to him. Before the servant could impose his foolish idea on the clever nurse, the phone started ringing again. Miss Zakia went and took the phone and started to speak. Welcome, sir. Yes, Mr. Osman Al-Taib's room in the hotel. I'm his private secretary, Zakia. Yes, sir, he is. I was out when you called. Yes, he is a silly and arrogant servant. He always gets us in trouble with my boss's best friends at work. My boss has sharply corrected him. He was bitten by a bee. The doctor had sternly warned him not to speak for 2 weeks. Yes, we are alone. Feel free to send your private and confidential messages. Wait a minute until I tell him that. Then the nurse put her hand on the receiver and said out loud, He said your new wife's brother got you and him into serious trouble. In response, the old man wrote a quick message and handed it to the nurse. What did Omar do? Then she began to repeat aloud what she had heard. The good citizen who exposed the crime of kidnapping and rape committed against the innocent girl came to my office and said he knew the criminal magician's hideout. I told him that I would not accept his information until he proved to me that he was a good citizen. When the nurse repeated the above information, the old man approached her and touched her shoulder. Wait, sir, Mr. Osman wants to say something. Then the old man wrote his opinion on a piece of paper and gave it to the nurse. Why don't you arrest him and charge him with the crime of Omar, thus turning him from a good citizen into a bad one? This cannot be done now, the nurse repeated, because your brother-in-law Omar has already betrayed us. The good citizen forced him to write a full confession of his involvement in the crime of kidnapping and rape and the bribery, which acquitted him. Sir, please wait. Mr. Osman Al-Taib has had a heart attack and collapsed. Then Zakia left the receiver and rushed to the old man. Haroon reached him in time and prevented him from falling and breaking his neck. The evil old man had not completely lost consciousness. He is sweating, trembling with fear and awe, and gnashing his teeth loudly. His private nurse quickly revived him, and he rose again. As he was trembling and panicking, he wrote a quick message and sent it through the nurse. Was Omar forced by the police or a good citizen to expose us? And who is the police inspector who stopped him? Zakia repeats Inspector Hussein's words out loud to the old man. Please, sir, be patient and brave. I don't want you to have a heart attack and die, and I really need you. There is no police inspector involved yet but me. Things are still under control and Omar has not yet been arrested. Those words made the old man relax and take a seat. Then he waved his hand to the nurse to continue calling. As I said, the good citizen forced the criminal Omar to write and sign 2 confession papers. In the first paper, he confessed his involvement in the kidnapping and rape of an innocent girl. In the second paper, he stated that his son-in-law had bribed Inspector Hussein, and thus his name was removed from the indictment. The old man came quickly and touched the nurse on the shoulder. Wait, Mr. Osman Al-Taib wants to write some words. The old man thought for a while and then wrote down his thoughts. You said that Omar mentioned that his son-in-law had bribed Inspector Hussein. Am I his only son-in-law? How do the police prove that I am the one, not Hassan Majub al-Halali? Inspector Hussein reacted angrily to the old man's reasoning, raising the nurse's voice 10 times. You are a selfish man. You only care about yourself. Like it or not, your full name was written on the confession papers. And I won't go to jail without you, but you and your evil son-in-law will go before me. The nurse stopped screaming and looked with anticipation at the old man's response to the grumpy police inspector's harsh words. The old man took his notebook and wrote his apology. First, he read it silently and was satisfied with it. The nurse also read it carefully before faxing it to the angry police inspector. I am so sorry, sir. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings or hold back. I assure you that I will be with you whether inside or outside the prison. I know I put you in this awkward position. I will stand by you and fight our way out of this problem. I am also willing to give all my money to protect ourselves from this evil plot. The angry police inspector seemed to accept the apology because Zakia lowered her voice by 10 notches. Please, sir, don't make me mad again. Your 4th wife's brother really ruined my day. The good citizen wants some money to shut his mouth. He demands £10 billion and Omar's sister. So, you pay the ransom and Omar should hand over his sister Badriya and the problem would end. The old man wrote down a quick message and handed it to the nurse. What will he do if we refuse to meet his evil demands? You are asking a very silly question. Of course, he will go to the police station and send us behind bars. And you'll never get out of the dungeon alive because of your advanced age. The old man wrote a quick question and gave it to Zakia. Then what should I do? You are asking a very stupid question again. You should come as soon as possible to Gadaref City and buy our freedom from the blackmailer. Some doubts entered the old man's mind, so he wrote them down and showed them to the nurse. I do not think the blackmailer is the same good citizen who directed you to the crime scene. I have some real doubts. I think the criminal Omar and his evil ringleader did some tricks to steal my money. Would you still hold on to your suspicions if I told you that the gang leader Alwash and another ugly criminal named Shakosh were arrested by me yesterday? Another bright idea popped into the old man's mind, which made him happy. So, he wrote it down and gave it to the nurse. Sir, I have a good suggestion for you. Why don't you put on Shakosh Omar's accusation and then let the good citizen fuck his dirty ass with confession papers? Listen, Mr. Osman Al-Taib, I am a police inspector, and therefore I know the weight of confession papers before the law. I already had done this idea, but if you don't pay the ransom money, surely it will fail. Again, the evil old man wrote down his reply and gave it to the nurse. In that case, I will issue a check in your name as I don't trust Omar. I will send it to you tomorrow. You cash it in and settle the deal with the blackmailer. I can't go back to Gadaref City because of the condition of my lips. Besides, I started enjoying my honeymoon with my new bride Firdaus in the capital city. Listen, sir, I am not alone in this matter. You know Omar can't move his leg. I can't use my policeman in such an illegal business. The good citizen told Omar that he would not come himself, but would send his friends to collect money. Suppose if they are smart and take the money without giving the confession papers, how can I handle such a situation? Therefore, I need you to cash in the money and get some bad guys. Once again, some doubts were raised in the old man's brain, and he wrote them down. Have you inquired of the so-called good citizen? How did he find the sixth criminal Omar's hideout? He said he saw him in the Sharia court. The mention of the Sharia court brought the old man to his feet. He rushed to the phone, snatched the receiver from the nurse, and put it in his mouth. Try again to stop fasting his talking. A sudden intense pain like an electric shock hit his mouth and spread throughout his body like burning fire. From the top of his head to the soles of his feet the pain extended like burning live coal. As a result, the old goat instantly collapsed. The nurse and Haroun ran to save him. The stupid slave arrived first and put his rough hands on his master's lips, thinking it would help him. In response, the old man showered him with many slaps and blows. The nurse, who was supposed to be the best, started to clean the old man's mouth with her handkerchief. When she saw the receiver swinging, she took it and said, "Are you still on the line, sir?" "Wait, please, Mr. Osman Al-Taib has collapsed again." She turned back to the old fox and continued to fan his burning lips. The lustful old geezer brought his hands around her waist and hugged her as if she was his fifth wife. And she does not care whether he did it out of parental affection or human lust, but rather surrendered her sexy body to him until his pain subsided. Then she helped him get back on his feet. After that, she took the handset and waited for her boss to explain the reason for his second sudden collapse. With fear and trembling, the old man wrote a question and gave it to Zakia to fax. Does the good citizen bear the name of Sami, Sulla, Intisar, or Farida? None of those, and especially the last two. He is a man, and he has a man's name. His name is Walid Hamza. The old man is not satisfied with the inspector's answer and then writes another question. Then why did he come to the Sharia court? That is none of my business. When you meet him in person, you can ask him this silly question. The old man was still suspicious, so he asked another question. Can you describe him to me? He is neither tall nor short. He is good-looking but not that handsome. He has an angry face and brown eyes, with a mustache and without a beard. He has black skin and curly hair. The old man was still trying to dispel his doubts, so wrote another question. The descriptions don't match either of those two bad boys, Sami or Sulla. But I still have doubts. How did this man know where my new brother-in-law, Omar, was hiding? Either he followed him after the trial, or someone directed him home. The old man does not ask a question this time, but a guess. So, he wrote it down and gave it to the nurse. If the blackmailer is one of those loafers, he will not care about money. He will use the confession papers to force me to divorce Firdaus, my Muslim wife number 4. Can you make yourself clear? The old man remembered that Inspector Hussein is not aware of his quarrel with Sami and his friends. So, he explained the problem in a few words and presented it to the nurse. To make a long story shorter, one of those tramps is having a love affair with my beautiful new bride Firdaus. He might try to pressure me into releasing her to him. In this case, what will you do? Are you going to keep the guy's girlfriend with you and send us to jail? The old man was upset and then expressed his anger with the following words. What do you mean, sir? Do you think I'm like the monster Alwash who used 5 criminals and kidnapped and raped an innocent girl? Not only am I not ready to go to jail, but I would rather die than let another man touch one finger of my beautiful 4th wife, Fertus. She is more important to me in my earthly life than the 72 eternal virgins in my heavenly paradise. Do you allow any man to touch your wife's body or commit adultery with her and put his cock in her hairy pussy or spend 5 minutes with her in your bed at your house, and that also in your absence, as if he is a muhalil and you are like a pimp for them? Even our infallible prophet Muhammad said when a man and a woman isolate themselves in each other's company, Satan will be their third partner. The police inspector could not answer this question and therefore had to withdraw his proposal. But he wanted to know how the lustful old geezer knew his only wife Magda had a hairy pussy, but he hesitated to ask that question. However, he replied with an apology for the difficult personal question. Accordingly, the nurse Sakia politely repeated his apology. I am so sorry, sir. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings or interfere with your private married life. I know that you have a 4th underage wife who is really beautiful and has sexy body indeed, and I saw her stunning beauty with my own eyes when I brought her to you to spend your honeymoon with her in the International Hilton Hotel in the capital city. But can you tell me how we will escape from such a trap? The old hyena wrote wait. The nurse read it to the police inspector and waited for further instructions. Then the old man put his hands on his back and started walking back and forth in the room. Most likely he's trying to plot some mischief. Suddenly he stopped and wrote what he thought would be a suitable solution. The nurse read it to herself first, but she didn't like it. She looked at her boss suspiciously. The old man pointed his finger at the phone, indicating that she should fax it whether she liked it or not. In this case, she read aloud, we must kidnap Intisar, my sister-in-law, and threaten those tramps to hand over Omar's confession papers within 24 hours, or we will rape her. Sir, I think you have a criminal mentality like your son-in-law, Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jaber. For me, I would rather spend the rest of my life in prison than participate in the kidnapping and rape of another innocent girl. Besides, how could you think of such an evil plot against your sister-in-law? The old man found himself in an awkward situation, and yet he still stuck to his evil plan. What I meant was just threatening them, but not real kidnapping and rape. How can we rape someone's wife? Intisar is a married girl, and her legal husband is Hassan, the son of my best friend, Mr. Majub al-Halali. Do what you love to do, but don't get involved in it. I prefer facing the law with the crime of bribery over the crime of kidnapping and rape. The old man hurriedly wrote his closing words before the inspector opposed his dangerous scheme. Your request has been granted, sir. We will not involve you in the kidnapping and rape plot. Would you permit me to inform my new son-in-law, Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jaber, to invite him to an important emergency meeting at his home by some respected gentleman in the city of Gadaref? The Blessed Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, the Imam of the largest mosque in the city, the mighty witch doctor Hajj Muhammad, and the greatest politician in the city, Mr. Majub al-Halali, in an urgent emergency meeting at 8 p.m. tomorrow. I will arrive at Gadaref Airport at 6 p.m. After that, Nurse Sakia waited for any comment from the police inspector Hussein, but the line was cut off. End of the 6th video.